Snowed In, A Secret Baby Christmas Romance. Secret Babies Book 6 by Michelle Love. Blurb.
My mother always warned me not to fall in love with my boss, but she never met Darren Grace. He's not only a billionaire with princely tastes and an honorable reputation, he's also the kindest, gentlest man I have ever met. He could steal my heart in an instant and claim my body whenever he pleased. Yet, he's about to marry the most unbearable woman in all of Boston. It's clear Darren is miserable about his engagement to heartless social climber Crystal Hiltman. He wants more. He deserves more. I can give him more, all but money and status. I can't measure up to Crystal there, and that's what his upcoming marriage is about. But then we share a night snowbound in a remote cottage in the Taconic Mountains. Now Darren's pet restoration project is our shelter from an early season blizzard, and the only place I can keep warm is in his arms and in his bed. When the storm blows over, everything has changed. With a significant chunk of Darren's fortune on the line, along with his reputation, I'm obliged to hide our affair to protect him. Nevertheless, how am I supposed to hide his baby?
Chapter 1. Cheyenne.
What a predicament. My boss, Dr. Darren Grace, is leaning on my desk, his charcoal and gray suit straining deliciously across his sculpted back, one hard buttock hitched up on the heavy wood, close enough to touch. He's oblivious, of course, as he always is, but at least with his back to me, I can look at him as much as I want. Yes, Crystal. Of course, Crystal. No, I'll be back in Boston as soon as I close the deal. He sounds strained behind the false cheer. No wonder he's talking to the worst woman in the world. Crystal Hiltman is a pain. But not in that I'm assertive and strong and men can't handle it way. That I could respect. She's the kind of pain who can watch her father take advantage of his servants without so much as blinking. Someone who wears her wealth and the wealth of her beleaguered fiancé, and who sneers and sniffs her way through every interaction. And worst of all, she's the kind of pain who, 3 months from now, will make Darren the unhappiest man in the world. If I can't pardon her attitude, I'm sure not going to forgive her for marrying him. Not when he would be happier with me. I can't give him money though. Crystal definitely can. She's wealthy. Her father is Darren's biggest rival in the American pharmaceutical industry. Their marriage is like an alliance of two powerful nations, and she's the princess on offer. An ice princess with a raisin-sized heart and apparently, the sex drive of a lizard in winter. The only thing she can give him is money, but I could give him everything else. If only. My eyes trace from the thick, rippling mane of his blonde hair, down his shoulder, and along the powerful arm bracing against my desktop. The desk is a boat, solid oak that probably outweighs him, so there's plenty of room for him to lean and me to work. However, who could work with a view like this? What? No, I'm just bringing my assistant. It will probably take the afternoon to hash out the deal. After that, I'll drive back, drop off my paperwork and join you. His voice is warm and reasonable, but his annoyance at constantly having to reassure her is there. Of course, she's paranoid and controlling on top of everything else. In her heart, she probably acknowledges she doesn't deserve Darren, not one bit. He's gone quiet. He turned his head partway in my direction, and I caught a glimpse of a scowl. She's bad-mouthing me again. Crystal, there's no need to be concerned. He winces as her voice snaps faintly. No. Yes, of course, I'll be home in time for supper. It's only 9 in the morning, we have plenty of time to get things done. Did she give you a curfew? It's impossible to tell what gnaws on me harder, my pity for a man who deserves so much better, letting himself be drawn to heel by a golden leash, or my frustration of having no chance with him at all. I tap away at the keyboard, reviewing the day's itinerary, while pretending not to be distracted. We're spending the day in the mountains to close a deal on a few pharmaceutical patents developed by a Dr. Abrams, one of his dad's old partners. The man is as eccentric as he is brilliant, and he refuses to come into the city, so we're meeting him near his home, at Darren's hunting lodge. The idea of spending an entire day with Darren away from the office had my fantasies running wild for almost a week. It was lying awake nights, restless and tingling, my skin unsatisfied by the imaginary caresses of his powerful hands. It's ridiculous, of course. He's promised to another, and he never treated me as anything besides his assistant and confidant. But a girl can still dream. Or not dream. This frustrated desire has given me insomnia. I stifle a yawn, re-examining the specifics of the patents. Dr. James Abrams is very ill and refusing treatment. He has cancer, the same disease he spent his career developing new chemotherapy drugs for. He shocked everyone, including Darren, by insisting on staying up on his mountain instead of seeking treatment. So up onto the mountain we go to make a transaction before he dies, and the patents become up for grabs. Darren already explained that one of his rivals, maybe even Hiltman, will buy them and sit on them if we don't. I can't imagine anyone unprincipled enough to pull needed medicines from the market, because it's more lucrative to sell other options. Apparently, a move like that is common in Darren's world. He's the only billionaire who is different. He has a problem with keeping medicine from the sick. As a result, I have no problem heading up the mountain with him in late October to back his play. Darren hangs up on Crystal with a grunt of disgust and turns to me, his beautifully curved lips twisting wryly. His eyes are an arresting deep gray, like the sky before a storm. Come on, let's pack up and get out of here before she decides to tag along. I laugh politely, shutting down my desktop and scooping up my briefcase. Ready when you are, boss. Underneath, I sadly wonder why in the world you are marrying her for the 100th time. He's about to spend the rest of his years living in spite of his wife instead of because of her, stealing scraps of happiness, friendships, and intimacy behind her back and starving for them the rest of the time. I want to grab and shake him. Is this really necessary? Money isn't the best answer, not when he is already prosperous. He noticeably doesn't love that atrocious woman, or her predatory pussball father. This just isn't typical, I think, putting my coat on. October has been unseasonably cold this year, and there is no way I'll go by Mount Greylock without an extra layer on. Darren, don't forget your coat, okay? He lets out a laugh. Yes, Mom. His tone teases me gently. I chuckle. If you get pneumonia and die, I'll lose my amazing job and a good friend. Come on now. He grins as he puts on his leather coat and belts it around his lean waist. Good thing I put the liner in. What is with all this crazy weather the last few weeks? We're Jetstream. It dipped again, and Boston got Canadian weather. I smooth the forest green wool swing coat in front and pull my matching hat on over my auburn braid, hoping that will be enough protection. It's 40 degrees and dropping instead of rising, and the wind's picking up. Good thing I've got the SUV. He gives my cap a playful tug as he walks past. Let's get going. I follow him, ignoring the hint of his spicy cologne riding the air. My fingers flex, itching to touch him, but I keep them firmly at my sides.
Chapter 2. Darren.
So where is this meeting place? Sweet little Cheyenne asks in her musical voice, turning a shy smile that warms me like the missing sun. It's amazing, going alone with her for once. Amazing, exhilarating, dangerous. Every time traffic brings us to a stop, I drink her in. She's pixie-ish and delicate, with high cheekbones and enormous sea-blue eyes. Her shampoo smells like tangerines and leaves flame highlights in her autumn-colored hair. Sitting in my black Mercedes SUV, fighting the Boston traffic on our way out of town, she gives me a soft gaze whenever she thinks I'm not looking. She's relaxing me just by being present. My hunting lodge has been in the family for 6 generations. It was just sitting there vacant on the side of the mountain for 12 years. It was a mess when I came 3 years ago. The renovations are almost done now. Should be all done by the end of spring. My voice is calm and cheerful, ignoring what those gentle stolen looks are already doing to me. I want to give us both what we crave, and not for just one night. Unfortunately, circumstances in my life don't give a crap about what either of us want. That pisses me off sometimes, especially when my ear still rings from Crystal's interrogations. Where are you going? Who are you going with? When are you getting back? Shit, we're not even living together and she's already like this. Crystal's neurotic about our engagement, and with good reason. We all know it's happening because her vicious, greedy father is forcing me. Her attempts to control every aspect of my life are driving me up the wall, almost as fast as her verbal "this marriage will be a nightmare." And yet, I can't see a way out of it. The lodge sounds lovely, Cheyenne remarks thoughtfully. Do you work on it to get away from the city? Cheyenne often asks about my woodworking hobby. I restore and create objects from wood. It relaxes me. She's aware that Crystal is on me to quit, calling my hobby plebeian. Yet another reason why I long to toss the tramp out of my life and take up with someone I really like. Someone like Cheyenne. That's pretty much it, yeah. I'm hoping that proving my rustic side will encourage him to sign since he loves it so much up here. Abrams is kind of a crackpot. When you're ready to die, he withdraws into the wilderness instead of going to Boston or any other city large enough to have a cancer center. It's hard not to consider that irrational. I go quiet, navigating us through a traffic clog. A guy in a red Lexus up is showing some signs of road rage, swerving from lane to lane and stepping on the gas pedal. The blaring horn echoes back at us. He'll sign anyway if you tell him Crystal's father's plans. The tiny edge in Cheyenne's voice makes me glad that she's on my side. She's a smart and fierce little lady. Makes me want her even more. She's also right. Dr. Brian Hiltman, my future father-in-law, also my greatest rival, and the biographer of my dismal fate, wants to keep anything off the market that might constitute a definitive cancer cure. Because of my father's murder and his partner's abrupt retirement, Abrams' patents are for medicines whose potential has never been fully explored. Hiltman Pharmaceuticals makes 58% of its profits on drugs used to treat various forms of cancer. All of them have a success rate of 70 out of 100, but their mediocre results mean more treatments, which means more drugs sold. A new chemotherapy regime with a high enough success rate would kill Hiltman's market share. That's why I'm doing this. Or at least the selfish part of why. I'd rather see more people free of cancer without going bankrupt in the process, but watching Hiltman's corporate stock tank so I can buy the company out from under the old jerk sounds like fitting revenge for what he's doing to me. Too bad I can't make it happen before the marriage is official. You're right, as usual. He needs to meet me on what is still technically company property. And he insisted we stay out of the city. I watch as the road maniac tangles with an old Ford LTD that suspiciously looks like a retired cop car. I wonder why, she muses. Abrams will not talk about why he wishes to stay out of towns larger than 1,000 people. But he won't go near them, and he won't enter a hospital. He'd rather let the cancer take him, and I have no idea why. I can't keep the grim tone out of my voice. We all went somewhat crazy after my father's poisoning. But Abrams never recovered. The red car bounces off the speeding truck and swerves uncontrollably for a moment, trailing sparks and bits of shattered fender. I slow down and change lanes to put more distance between us. Holy crap, Cheyenne utters as she watches the red car bounce off the median and speed away. Do you think they were drunk? No, this is Boston. Drivers get riled up over nothing. I let the road rager drive out of sight before speeding up and getting back into the fast lane. Don't worry. I'll get us there safely. I don't have a doubt, she says with a tender warmth, and it catches me off guard in the wake of the driving stress. Why didn't I take you when we had the chance? Our interest in each other, perceptibly and deliciously mutual, has always been there. Somehow, something was always in the way that kept me from sealing the deal. First, it was the age difference. And she was my employee as well. I was also dating a succession of petite girls, and secretly sleeping with them to avoid being perceived as a predatory boss. And now it's too late. We might run into some rain and wind coming down the mountain, but things should go smoothly otherwise. We'll grab a snack while we're there. I stocked the place for my cousin last weekend. The traffic thins as we get further away from Boston, but I still feel broody and tense. I kept making excuses not to fall deeper for Cheyenne. Then Hiltman showed up 6 months ago with his predatory frown and some solid blackmail material. He was there to make certain if he couldn't own my company, his grandson, my future son, would. So I've been taking steps. But I'm still trapped into this wedding. Right after Christmas, no less. My favorite time of year will be ruined anticipating that. Darren, look. Cheyenne hesitates. I brace myself, knowing what it's about even before she finishes with, "Why are you going through with this wedding? You don't seem happy about it." "It's not a marriage for happiness," I sigh, keeping my eyes on the road. It comes out sounding like an apology, and it should be. I won't ignore what lies unspoken between us. "What is this marriage for, then? You don't need more riches. Crystal is a complete." "I know." I cut her off with slight irritation. She's more a piece of angry baggage than a person, especially with her passive aggression and all the spoiling her father has done. Well, she's still a person. She's not looking at me. When I glance over, she's staring out the window. But she's a terrible person. Yes. It's frustrating. I briefly rub my face with my shifting hand, and then settle it back on the steering wheel. She actually thought we were going to ditch her for the weekend. "Hey, I'd be up for it," she laughs shyly. "Not sure about using the hunting lodge to hunt, though. I usually hunt with my game cameras, you know that." I chuckle, but behind it, I'm getting more desperate. She's right. If I had control over the situation, I'd never see Crystal or her parasite father again. Yet if I do that, he'll send what he's got to my board of directors. I'm still the majority shareholder, but they can still make things difficult if he stirs them up enough. What Hiltman's got will certainly stir them up. It'll be like kicking a hornet's nest. And I'm at least half to blame for that blackmail material, because I was careless after my father's death. Cheyenne asks me about the trail cams. When I mention some of the better footage, she nods along. We're both distracted, there's a weight over us. At least she's willing to let the subject of my wedding drift away. The nuptials loom closer with each day. And with it, is there any chance that I can take Cheyenne on my own? At least in any way that doesn't involve massive scandal and a messy divorce. Anyway, last fall, a windstorm came through and knocked a tree limb into one of my cameras. Wonder what is going on with the weather these days. It seems like the seasons keep overlapping. It's actually pretty troubling. Snow seasons in the last few years have been too early, too late, or too heavy. Or there's been no snow at all, like 2 years ago, up until some blizzards in early March. "Well, I hope we don't have any snow until the end of the month," she grumbles. I'm happy to be spending time alone with her now, with no one giving me trouble about it, except for Crystal, but she gives me trouble about everything.
Chapter 3. Cheyenne.
It turned into a very long afternoon. Dr. Abrams is a tall, lean, slightly bent man with thinning white hair that escapes his watch cap in wisps, and thin hands that constantly tremble. He's kind and polite to us both, listens to what we have to say, and does indeed, eventually, sign the papers. But it requires a lot of patience to listen to him ramble half-drunkenly about medical ethics. By the time we signed the papers, we'd been with him for 5 hours. Abrams looks at the two of us and smiles. "Saving these patents is what your father would have wanted, Darren. I'm glad to be of help." My head is pounding, and Darren's smile is faintly strained. Neither one of us complains. It's clear the old man is lonely and a bit addled, maybe from the pain or maybe from living alone on a mostly isolated mountain for so many years. "Thank you very much," Darren replies politely. He's neither irritated nor bored, but from the set of his shoulders it looks like he's fighting impatience. I will send reports on our continued research. Make sure the resulting medicines go where they are needed. Abrams coughs wetly into his fist, and my stomach jumps. I wonder how much time he has left and return my attention to Darren. He shoots me a small, reassuring glance as he gets out of his chair and walks the old man to the door. It shuts behind them, their feet crunching on the gravel outside, their voices becoming fainter. I lean back in a massive leather-upholstered chair and look around the lodge. Darren calls it cozy. It has a peaked cathedral ceiling, an entire front wall of insulated glass, a kitchen with hammered copper accents, and a massive farmhouse sink. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a sauna, a hot tub, the sprawling great room, all on 10 acres of land. If Darren really thinks of this as modest and rustic, I wonder what his definition of opulent is. And it's warm, certainly warmer than my own apartment. There is not a draft anywhere. It has whole log walls, heavily insulated, and a geothermal heat pump to supplement its gigantic Russian brick stove. I'd love to remain here a while alone with Darren and spend some real time with him. Neither one of us has anything or anyone worth rushing back for, not after work hours. I want to find an excuse to linger. Instead, I sighed and started packing up my laptop and papers. Everything's handled. I can at least go home knowing I helped Darren make a fundamental deal. But when he comes back from walking the elder doctor out, he brings with him a blast of Arctic air. He's blinking rapidly, and flakes of snow are in his hair. What's going on? He utters in a tone of mild concern. The sky is black, and it's dropped 15 degrees since we arrived. The wind's way up, and it's starting to snow. What the, really? So much for lingering. We better get out of here before the road gets icy. Yeah, I agree. Help me get the lights off and the heat down, and we'll get moving. We start hastening around to shut the place down. It is at that moment, at the worst possible time, that Darren's phone shrills. He uses a retro telephone's jangling as his ringtone for Crystal. I tense up at once whenever I hear it. I keep turning the lights off as Darren rolls his eyes and answers it. What is it, sweetheart? I'm kind of in a rush here. He pauses. No, the client kept us for 5 hours. We're trying to get off the mountain before this storm gets underway. Can I call you back? Another pause. Crystal, the storm's getting worse. It is snowing. We really need to discuss this later. Give me an hour to get off the mountain. I'll call you then. That just seems to drive Crystal into greater aggression. Darren winces. Hang up on her, a crazy, desperate part of me begs. Hang up on that spoiled, irrational cow and run away with me. It takes him another 5 minutes before she stops calling him back. By then the storm gray of the sky has thickened into a blank white. The wind moans and my heart beats faster. We might have some trouble. Finally, he turns his phone off. Now or never. Let's go. I follow him out into the swirling wind. I immediately regret it. The temperature's still dropping, stinging every inch of my exposed skin even before the big flecks of snow batter against me. White drifts start forming at the edges of everything as the wind catches the snow up against the furrowed logs and stone slab paving. Darren shields me from the wind as we push toward the distant dark hulk of his SUV. The storm hasn't just worsened, it's gathering strength as fast as an avalanche. I feel like if it weren't for Darren, the storm would otherwise have swept me off my feet. We slog up the path, stepping carefully on the now icy slate flagstones. My chest burns and my feet slip as the wind pushes me. It's so cold that I feel detached from my body, numbly watching myself struggle against the increasing cold, protected only by a thin winter coat. The walk seems to stretch on forever as I get colder and colder under my flimsy coat. The snow is blowing sideways against my legs, bouncing over the rapidly freezing ground in rippling sheets that look like vapor until they bite my calves. I push myself forward against them and against the shove of the wind, and then Darren turns back to push me against the side of the SUV. We made it. I gasp for air, stunned, bullets of ice in my hair. Are you all right? He asks, but I can't speak. I hide against his chest, fingers retracted into my coat sleeves, and simply nod. I don't think it's wise to drive in this, he understates dryly as we watch branches topple onto the road and skid across it. Then an entire tree crashes down, blocking one of the lanes of the road. Back inside we go, he orders, ushering me back, protecting me from the wind at our backs. The howl of the storm, the hard patter of snow, and the cracking of tree branches grow to a deafening din all around us as we struggle the quarter-mile back to the safety of the lodge. I'm scared and disoriented, barely realizing how much I'm shivering or how close his body is to mine. I don't feel my knees give. I pitch forward with a startled yelp. He catches my fall and gently scoops me into his arms. He bowls for the door, carrying me without effort, the heat of his labored breathing stinging my cheek. I hear the jingle of his keys and the clunk of the lock, and then we stumble together through the doorway into the quiet, sheltered space beyond. Damn! He gasps, kicking the door closed and latching it before bundling me over to the broad, overstuffed couch. Are you okay? He asks as he sets me down. I sit there, my ears ringing in the sudden quiet, and tentatively flex my fingers. They prickle and burn. All my exposed skin prickles and burns. I feel everything. He helps me out of my coat and the now sodden blazer beneath it. I'll put the kettle on. Get your boots off, sweetheart, and those socks too. I'll bring you a blanket. He ignores the ice melting in his own hair, his own leather coat now dripping, his breath exhaling in shivering fog as he moves around. I comply, fiddling with my bootlaces with stiff fingers. The warm air burns my feet more than my fingers. I whimper with pain as I remove my shoes and peel off my socks. My toes can wiggle. And at least my skin is red instead of white. He brings me a thick rose and green comforter and wraps me in it. My feet draw up under it, shivering, trying to warm up. Outside, the storm pounds the windows, wailing. He looks at the big main window, scowling. The road may be completely blocked. I'll call in to make sure someone knows we're here. Just let me get some hot tea into you. I nod numbly, waiting for the kettle to whistle, for the pain to fade, waiting to get warm. I'll try. But something's not right. My body doesn't seem to be warming up.
Chapter 4. Darren.
I manage to get in 3 short phone calls before Crystal gets a call. The first to my caretaker, George, who now knows to come plow us out once the storm passes. The second to my chief manager, Beth, who will hold down the fort if we're stuck here for more than a day. And the last to my butler, Jacob, who will prepare the mansion grounds in case the storm reaches that far. My phone rings in my ear, that same shrill ringtone alerting me. Back teeth hurting, I pick up. Well, thanks a lot, Crystal. Now we're stuck. What are you talking about? She demands in her distinctive nasal snap. You said you would be over for supper. Have you noticed the blizzard outside? I ask dryly. She goes quiet for a few moments. I hear tapping away on a keyboard. It says there's a road closure on the mountain. She sounds genuinely astonished. Yes, that's right. It blew in as I tried to get your stubborn butt off the phone. I attested with strained patience. The tea kettle whistles for some lemon ginger tea. Is that low-class assistant there with you? Crystal demands. Startled, I drop the tea box on the counter, scoop it up, and stuff it back in the cabinet. Crap. What does she suspect this time? How does that relate to getting snowed in? Don't exaggerate. That freak storm would have caught you on the road anyway. She's right, and I grunt in acknowledgement. That's affirmative. Now answer my question. No. The lie comes out easily, shocking me, and the shock sends a strange rush of pleasure through me. I sent her home as soon as we didn't need her anymore. Why? Oh. Now she sounds uncertain. All right then. What do you mean, all right then? I'm stuck up here. Suddenly, though, I'm feeling much less annoyed. I wanted a vacation. I'll take an imposed one. Especially if it's with Cheyenne. Even though this poses some problems of its own, and should news of my lie ever get back to her, not just what Crystal will suspect. I turn to look at Cheyenne again, and indulge in my fantasies once more. The storm can't possibly trap you up there for long. I assume your access road will be cleared as soon as they get there. Crystal suddenly sounds completely content with the fact that I won't be joining her tonight. I can imagine why. This marriage is being imposed on her too, probably with her inheritance in the balance. But it's not easy for me to sympathize when she takes it out on me at every opportunity. As long as I'm trapped somewhere and she knows where, she's fine with it. And that makes me wonder about the damage done to her by being the pampered daughter of such a hollow, craven man. Fine, I grumble. I don't know when I'll get out of here. I'll call you when I have an update. After I call everyone else, of course. Fine. Do that. She hangs up in my ear, already bored with the conversation. Shoving my phone back into my pocket, I check the steeping tea. It's still too hot. I walk over to check on Cheyenne. How are you feeling over here? She lifts her head to look at me, and my heart sinks. She's very pale and still shivering. I can't seem to get warm, she mumbles, and my concern becomes a stabbing fear. Okay. Don't panic, this is temporary. You just need time and some more heat. I carry her to the couch nearest the fireplace, trying not to give in to panic myself. Her skin is cold and clammy, and her hands and feet are red. I shuck off my coat, suitcoat, and shoes. She remains shivering under her comforter. Without thinking about it, I sit next to her and wrap the comforter around us both to warm her with my body heat. What are you doing? She's mildly surprised. She seems sleepy. That worries me more than anything. I left my heated blanket at home, so you get a heated me instead. The leather jacket kept my clothing dry. It takes all my willpower not to wrap my arms around her, and even then, I'm tempted. I start to wonder. Why not? I'm not in this marriage voluntarily. Cheyenne knows it, and Crystal treats me like a leper. Why not rebel? Cheyenne lays her head on my shoulder, and my arm goes around her as if by reflex, cuddling her slight, shivering form against my side. Okay, there. Does that feel better? Is that a trick question? She's perking up. I could stay like this for the entire storm. There's no ignoring her now. The tangerine smell of her hair. The delicate warmth slowly returns to her skin as she borrows mine. The storm is still intensifying, battering itself audibly against the insulated windows. The shadow of a tree falling near the access road catches my eye, and I rather hope that it's just cut us further off from a rescue. My mind's not on the storm, though, because I can't stop thinking about the potential complications. Take Cheyenne as my romantic partner, what an enticing thought. But then what? If we can sneak around, I will wind up hurting her by always leaving her on the fringes of my life. Or I can come clean, call off the wedding, propose to this woman who I actually want, and then lose her anyway, because Crystal's father would release his blackmail material, and she would know the idiot I am when drowned in booze and grief. My grip on her tightens, and she slides an arm around me with a soft sound that's almost like a purr. The feel of her shy fingers through my shirt sends a fresh tingle through me. I cover her hand with mine and hold it over my pounding heart. This is too risky. I'll only disappoint her, hurt her, and lose her. Don't let go, she whispers against my neck, the tickle of her lips making me groan softly before I stop myself. I should protest. I should warn her. I certainly should stop stroking her drying hair. But instead, I wrap my arms around her more closely and gather her onto my lap, hissing softly as her warm weight brushes against me. I don't want to let go, I utter. I don't. What I want is to be with her until my life, the storm, and the whole world goes away. But I can't afford it. Or can I? And so, undecided, I sit there with her in my arms, the quilt bundled around us, and a storm raging, outside the lodge and inside me.
Chapter 5. Cheyenne.
Darren holds me in his arms. As the warmth slowly seeps back into my body, and numbness is replaced by the full spectrum of my sensations, this simple fact registers. My face is tucked against his neck, I'm cradled with him beneath the comforter, and my skin is coming alive. I don't want to let go. His words echo in my ears, their almost desperate tone telling me he's been aching for me too. And suddenly, I'm fighting an inner war. He wants me as well. But he's marrying another, and has never let on about his interest before now. Why? The one thing that kept me from so much as flirting with Darren through the years has been his apparent lack of interest. Now I see that he's simply been hiding it. With the dam now open, I want to kiss him. How can he possibly force himself to go with that neurotic ice queen if he in fact wants me? It's pissing me off just thinking about it. The storm breaks through my thoughts. I hear the wind roar. I look to see what it's like outside. It is now almost completely white. The trees are nothing but grayish shadows. Some of them move. Darren's grip on me tightens protectively as some of those long gray shapes tilt forward and topple into the road. The sound of splintering wood rises over the storm, and a few chunks of wood slam against the armored glass. My lungs burn, I'm holding my breath. A moment later, the rumbling stops, leaving behind the hiss of blown snow sliding against the glass. The wind knocks some of the trees down, Darren mutters into my hair, and I let out my breath in a rush. Seems like we're blocked in completely. There's a fatalism in his voice, as if he's accepted that we're trapped. I guess that's not too daunting. This place is fully stocked and has generators if we lose power. But I don't understand his serenity until I see the soft gleam in his eyes. He's a good man. He doesn't want to cheat on his fiancée or even duck her for more than a few hours. But now, he's being forced to do the second. He's here, trapped alone with me. How long can we hold out up here? I turn my face away from his neck so he can hear me. Some of the trees are now truncated, their jagged remnants rising against the swirling white like broken teeth. I'm frightened and conflicted, but a serene resignation is undeniably settling over me too. His body is warming mine, driving away the chill that seeped into my bones in those minutes outside. And if I'm trapped with the man of my dreams. Does Crystal know? I feel a stab of guilt. She may be divorced from any empathy, but she's awfully high-strung and jealous, and not stupid. Maybe she doesn't care where her future husband's heart is, as long as she's got control of the rest of him. I slide my hand up his chest as the storm ebbs for a moment. Darren? You never answered my question. He gives me a smoldering look as if he's going to kiss me. I eagerly lift my face toward his, and he hesitates. A week if we have to. We may lose power, but we'll be fine until the storm ends. I close my eyes. And we're here until the road's cleared. Which could be for quite a while longer. Yes, indeed, he acknowledges in a low, throaty tone. Alone, I say needlessly, with just a bit of an edge on it. Yes. His hand slides up my shoulder and warmly circles the back of my neck. His breath catches as I roll my head submissively in his grip. It's inevitable, I realize, feeling his low rumble of pleasure vibrate his chest. Even one night will be too long to wait. Both of us want this too much. Darren's phone shrinks again. Oh, come on, he growls. He gently lifts me from his lap, sitting me back down in a comforter nest, now warmed by his hot body. I breathe in the soft whiffs of cologne and sigh, feeling his sudden absence as keenly as if a part of myself had just got up and walked across the room. He answers at once. What is it, Crystal? He snaps, not even attempting to hide his annoyance. He listens for a moment, a scowl deepening on his face. No, that's really none of your father's business. Dr. Hiltman is one of the most unethical men in the pharmaceutical industry. If he's taking an interest in our business up in the mountains, it can't be a good thing. I understand that he is my future father-in-law. However, he has no business looking into how my company is run, or into confidential statements made by our clients and trade allies. I have an obligation to my board to restrict that information. His shoulders tense, and his tone is low and authoritative. He is strictly business. A pause stretches. I hear the storm, the soft rasp of his breathing, and that faint nasal twitter of Crystal's voice. The fingers of his free hand ball into a fist. No, I'm not at liberty to discuss which client I was meeting. That was the sole condition. Another pause. Don't try to manipulate me, Crystal. You're bad at it. My heart's beating quickly. Somehow, the Hiltmans suspect the deal about the rescued chemotherapy patents. That could be bad. They can't actually sue successfully for those patents, but they could tangle it up in legal red tape for years. And Hiltman would likely do it, just to spite Darren for beating him to the punch. Why is this so difficult to understand? Darren snaps into the phone. Has anyone in your life ever told you no, Crystal? No. Darren replies firmly as if dealing with a child in mid-tantrum. No. If he wants that information, he'll have to ask me himself instead of having you cajole me like this. He licks his lips and glances at me as she goes quiet. Listen, Crystal. I don't know why he's leaning on you for this information. The meeting was routine except for its location. He doesn't want to shout. He's not the kind of man who raises that rumbling voice of his to women. I get up, wrapped in the comforter, and stumble toward him, my legs still weak but functional. I didn't even get what I came for anyway, all right? I'll give you specifics later. I have to sort out how to wait out the storm here. He sounds astonished. Damn it, Crystal, could you stop being your father's puppet for 5 minutes? I'm close enough that I hear her hang up. He drops the phone and facepalms, letting out a sigh of exasperation. I lay a hand on his back and he straightens slightly. Turn the phone off, I suggest. But what about emergency services and... He looks at his phone and then picks it up, staring at it. Turn it off anyway. My hand curls around his bicep, feeling the warm muscle through his shirt as my fingers slowly slide up and down. They won't be able to get to us for hours, even if service lasts. He stands rigid, his back to me, his muscles tight. I'm tired of watching him suffer while I only try to be a friend. That isn't what either of us deserves. I slowly walk around him, trailing my hand around his body so it ends up over his pounding heart. No one can get in at us here, I announce, gazing up at him. He turns the phone off and sets it aside, his eyes never leaving mine. His hands brush my shoulders lightly, and I drop the comforter and move up against him. Neither of us speaks. Outside, the wind's wail rises and falls as the snow patters against the roof and walls. And the lights go out.
Chapter 6. Cheyenne.
The blackout swallows the interior of the bright, warm lodge, leaving only the swirling gray brilliance of the storm washing over everything. I freeze, and Darren's arms engulf me protectively again. Small emergency lights flick on over the doorways, and somewhere in the basement, a backup generator rumbles to life. We both waited, listened, and hung on to each other. His hand cups the back of my neck, and his heart pounds against my cheek. I close my eyes, breathing in his scent, allowing the heat rolling off his toned body to soothe me. It feels so good to be in his arms, even in the middle of all this craziness. It steals away my fears. The backup system has enough fuel to last us days if we're careful. His voice is husky, and his hand slides down my back and finally settles at my waist. I decide not to. With all my nerves, I brush my lips against his invitation. For a single tingling, desperate moment, he freezes. I fear he's going to push me away. But instead, he seizes me and steals my breath with an intense kiss. It's ferocious. My mind short-circuits, my body responds, and my thoughts are in chaos as his lips slide so roughly against mine that I can feel his teeth. It feels like the first gulp of water after breaking a fever. His kiss floods life back into me. In the dark, where nobody can see, it's easy to cling to him, with the howl of the storm to cover up any sound. His kiss tastes like relief. It tastes like defiance. We're impatient for each other. Holy cow, I gasp, my back arching, and he chuckles against my skin. The words "I've never gone this far before" echo in my head. I do my best to shove aside my nervousness. I don't know what I'm doing. But he does, and I trust him. If there was ever a time to be daring, it's now. If there was ever a time to push my limits, it's now. Shortly after. Only then do I fully understand what we just did. He's engaged, and we did it. And I want to again. You all right? He murmurs against my collarbone. Yeah, I mumble. But really, I'm stunned, knocked flat inside by unfamiliar sensations and feelings. Until now, my need for Darren was a romanticized, abstract thing, a craving for his embrace and fantasies of kisses. Now, though, it is all too real, a carnal hunger he stoked up and then satisfied. I know something of intimacy now and his body, and I want more of both. Crap, he utters, surprising me. He raises his eyes awkwardly. What is it? I ask, a thread of apprehension working its way through my bliss. I didn't use protection. I'm sorry. I got carried away. Thanks to my engagement, I haven't been with anyone in months. I smile reassuringly. I had a hormonal IUD put in months ago. We're good. It was an optimistic decision at the time, one I was never happier to have chosen. It's not as if I had planned to seduce Darren. But I had planned to lose my Versus card. It's just that I wanted it to be someone I desired like Darren, and that has never happened. He gives a relieved sigh and kisses me. Oh good. The storm's noisiness no longer worries me. He bundles me in the comforter and scoops me up, carrying me through the dim hallway to the master bedroom. I look around at the heavy wood and leather furnishings and sigh happily as he settles me onto a bed that is a deep soft nest of feather mattresses and comforters. He takes off the rest of my clothes and drops them over the side of the bed. He's already kicked off his trousers and socks and stripped the shirt off his shoulders. He climbs onto the bed and settles over me. Oh. Darren, you're not done yet? His grin is wicked as he shakes his head. I'll never be done with you. I love you. I don't know who says it first. Maybe both of us at once whispered against each other's lips between kisses. I love you. We hold each other in the dark, keeping Boston and all its problems far away, and his body presses me into the soft nest of bedding over and over as the springs creak. I drift off to sleep before he can even get off of me. My body is completely slack, and I have a smile on my lips. I'm drinking tea in an English garden, in an old-fashioned gazebo adorned in white. Crystal sits across from me, expression cold. Did you think I wouldn't find out? She asks me coldly, and I laugh. I don't care if you find out. I was here first. Darren and I have always loved each other. You have no right to be with him, and your jerk of a father can choke. She stares at me in shock. She starts lecturing me about what an uncouth, shameless tramp I am, but I'm barely listening. What do you have to say for yourself? She demands as I look down at my body in confusion. You and your family are going to lose this one, Crystal. He's mine, no matter what you try.
Chapter 7. Darren.
That was my first time, Cheyenne tells me in the dark. We're both still waking up, but her soft admission startles me the rest of the way awake. I lean up as she curls up on my chest. Yesterday. With you. Both flattered and sad, I start to stroke her hair. I'm sorry I kept you waiting. I keep waiting for the shame to register. I just took the stereotypical executive's road to perdition, cheating on my fiancé with my secretary. But the fiancé is Crystal, and the secretary is Cheyenne, and I am so much in love right now, I barely care how much trouble I'm in. It's okay, she responds softly. I was worried about never getting to have you. With a sigh, Cheyenne separates from me and rises from the bed. You can turn on the light, I reassure. Just only use the ones you need. I don't know how long we're stuck here, and the generator will run out of fuel eventually. The light flicks on, making me glance away the moment her lovely silhouette moves out of sight. The door closes, leaving me in darkness again while she showers. I'm starving. I scoop up my pants and underwear and step into them, zipping up as I walk out into the great room. The windows are unbroken, but the storm is still raging. We'll be here for at least a few days. The thought makes me smile. Good. I make us breakfast and serve it by candlelight with my shirt off. We devour the eggs, bacon, and English muffins while we stare at each other. Long silences stretching between us, no need for words. The moment both our plates are cleared off, I reach for her again. This is where I belong. This is who I belong with. I want only her. Only her. There in our Snowdon haven, I only become more determined to make Cheyenne and not Crystal my wife. For 3 days we discuss it, demonstrate it, and take our passions out on each other. For 3 days everything is perfect. But I still don't know how I'm going to free myself of Hiltman and his ice-blooded daughter. When Cheyenne and I go back to Boston, and that time will come, I can only give her a promise that I'll figure something out. Unfortunately, Crystal is the first person I will have to deal with. And I won't even get enough sleep. Are you paying attention, Darren? Crystal's nasal voice cuts sharply through my thoughts. I gaze sleepily at her. Sorry. Coffee first, active listening after. My head is pounding. It's 6 a.m. and I was up until 3. Not intentionally, my thoughts kept me awake. My thoughts, and Cheyenne's absence beside me in bed for the first time in 3 days. Crystal is as chilly as a ski slope at dawn. I have no idea when or even if she went to bed, but she's more pulled together than anyone has a right to be this early in the day. Dressed all in white, from her skirt suit to her stockings to her white gold jewelry. Her light blonde hair is up in a perfect chignon, and her pale blue eyes are delicately lined, and they fix on me disapprovingly as I stifle a yawn. The reason she looks so good is that she got her attendant up at 4 to get her ready. Poor Ellen doesn't deserve this kind of treatment. I even said so, but Crystal, as usual when I say something she doesn't want to hear, pretends that her ears aren't working and breezes past into another subject. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with you once we're married, if you're this useless early in the morning. She takes up her coffee in its little bone china cup and sips at it delicately. Yes, well, human beings sleep, I point out, as I pour myself an enormous mug of mocha java. She fixes that irritated stare on my Red Sox mug, forcing me to repress a smirk at her petty annoyance with my tastes. Don't keep wasting my time, Darren. I don't like repeating myself, she scolds with one of those arch little sniffs that already drive me crazy. When I first met her, having realized my fate already thanks to her father, she seemed fussy but all right. Beautiful certainly and well-bred, but neurotic like a show poodle. Then we talked for 5 minutes. You're the one wasting your time barging in here before 9. This is my mansion, not hers, every bit of it claimed from the warm exposed brick to the light-filled breakfast nook we sit in now. All I did was let her in, but no more concessions. She shoots me a sulky look and sniffs again, sipping at her coffee. Why on earth do you make this so strong, she complains, changing the subject while still picking at me. I don't want my hands to shake for my manicure. I asked if you wanted tea, I point out, and take another reviving gulp from my mug. Anyway, I make it strong because I need it strong. I was up until 3. Her delicate little frown deepens slightly. Doing what? Working, I lie. No way am I telling her that I spent the last evening pining for another woman. That would likely get me more shit than admitting to her that I spent the 3 evenings before that intensely making love to another woman. Cheyenne. Just thinking about her leaves me stiff. From famine to feast and then back to famine again. I down another scalding swallow of coffee and shake my head. It's not the time with her that I regret right now, sitting here drinking coffee as quickly as I can tolerate it in an attempt to keep my eyes open. No, not at all. I'll never regret a single moment I spent with Cheyenne. I wouldn't change a stroke. It's returning to face all this crap that I regret. I regret not taking Cheyenne sooner. Before Crystal. Before any of this. Father called again, Crystal said, and I glanced at her over the rim of my mug before draining it. That's why I'm here. He was very insistent. Shit. Well, I knew this conversation was coming after those calls at the hunting lodge. Yeah. He still wants the name of your client. The one who you went up into the mountains to make a business deal with. The acidic swell in her tone turns the coffee bitter in my mouth. Why does he care who I sell the hunting lodge to? I ask, feigning irritability, using Cheyenne's well-thought-out lie like a shield. Thank goodness we talked about this before we left. Crystal blinks and sets her cup down. I thought that you were there on company business. The lodge is a company holding. I entertain clients there. Why is your father interested in my hunting lodge? I asked, keeping my tone mildly incredulous. Oh. She blinks rapidly as she takes up her cup again, as if to hide some strong emotion. Disappointment, probably. You're the one who keeps sending tidbits of information on me to Daddy. A moment later, she confirms my suspicions. Do you know a Dr. James Abrams? Oh, you snake. You really are his little spy. Yes, he was one of my father's old partners. Retired right after Dad died. Apparently, he lives up near there. My father was curious as to whether or not you were visiting him. Her eyes search my face. I set my coffee mug down slowly. Why has Hiltman been keeping tabs on Abrams' location? No, I was at my lodge. Last I heard, Abrams was in hospice in some shitty town up in the mountains. I hate going to those depressing places. James Abrams will probably die in his own bed, in his own cabin, on his own land in the mountains, on his own terms, as far as I know. But the fact that Hiltman knows where he is and worries that much about my meeting with him bothers me more than I can let on. Has he been keeping tabs because of the patents? Waiting like a vulture for Abrams to drop so he can snap them up? I wouldn't put it past him. Somehow, this feels like there might be more than that to it. Oh. I can't tell if she's relieved or disappointed. Her tiny frown is back and she's fiddling with her coffee cup. Well, then. I guess it was nothing after all. If he'd like a look at the lodge, I offer, but she holds up a narrow hand dismissively. He never leaves Boston if he can help it. Her voice is crisp, matter-of-fact, and deathly bored, like she's exasperated with her father's eccentricities. He hates the countryside, in fact he's infamous for it. Refuses to go anywhere with fewer than 1,000 people. Something about this rings an alarm in my head, but I can't make any connection. I'm just too tired. I see. Never mind then. Why get rid of the lodge? She isn't even looking at me anymore. Her duty's done, the truth pried out of me. I'm guessing she'll leave soon. This is my future. I suddenly feel exhausted. I can't keep writing it off if no clients actually want to go out to the mountain for the weekend. Many of them are like your father, very urban. Very civilized, you mean, she sneers delicately. Who on earth would want to go out somewhere where the only entertainment is shooting at animals? I've only ever shot the wildlife with a camera. My smile is entirely forced now. She pauses, blinking. Oh. I thought you went there weekends to kill things. No. I have trail cams I put up there and stuff. Is that one of the reasons she's so cold to me? You thought I was a trophy hunter. My mistake, she says, shocking me utterly for a moment. I guess I shouldn't have assumed that. For once, she has actually left me speechless. Was that an apology? She sets down the half-drunk coffee and changes the subject on a dime. So, I trust you'll be attending our Christmas festivities this year, as we're to be married soon after. It sounds like a command, but her eyes look inquisitive. There's no way I am wasting my favorite holiday on her or her nightmare of a family. I'll find a way out of this. But for now, I need to keep the peace. Of course. Christmas has always been special to me. Growing up, it was a time for family and friends, a time when my father set aside all his business concerns and took us up to the lodge to celebrate in style. I remember waking up to wood smoke, cocoa steam, and the perfume of the Christmas tree, all mixing aromatically in my nostrils. Replacing it with a cold, staid, formal meal with my captor and his jail warden sounds like a nightmare. Hiltman can put a gun to my head. I don't care. Their farce of a celebration is the afternoon of the 23rd. I won't be spending it with them. What's more, I already know who I want to spend it with instead. As Crystal got up to leave, I blurt out, "Why are you marrying me anyway?" She shoots me a sharp look. "What? You've never told me why you agreed to this arrangement." I honestly don't know, thinking about it now, if she knows about the blackmail. She shrugs so carelessly it infuriates me, but I manage to keep my small, curious smile. "You're wealthy and unattached, and my family wants your assets. What else is there?" My smile feels like it's frozen on my face. "What indeed?" I ask mildly as I get up to see her out.
Chapter 8. Darren.
The first thing Cheyenne asks when she hears me on the phone is, "What's wrong?" Everything. But I can only tell you some of it. Hiltman has been keeping tabs on Abrams. I don't know why. I suspect he is plotting to snatch those patents, but there may be more to it. Crap. Okay. So now what? I hear the rustle of her puttering around. It sounds like she's already getting ready to come join me. I need to talk to Abrams again. But first, I need to make sure those patent papers are all filed. I can't let them sit. He sent his daughter sniffing around for information at 6 this morning. "You mean your fiancé?" I can't help but notice the edge to her voice. Yes. I can't keep the conflict out of my voice either. Neither one of us wanted to come back down off that mountain once the plows came through, but duty called. For now, anyway. I look over at the half-empty cup on my breakfast table. It's been sitting there cold for 2 hours. I have avoided touching it, as if it might contaminate me. It occurs to me suddenly that Crystal has never allowed me to touch her, beyond a single tepid, silk-gloved handshake. I don't even know what her skin feels like. I don't even know if she likes men. She already admitted she's only marrying my wallet, and on Daddy's orders. It does seem strange that they're both so obsessed with your potential meeting with Abrams. Her tone has gone thoughtful, and I let out a silent sigh of relief at the change in subject. "I know I told you to take a few days off after everything. But I need you. I really need your help handling all this paper discreetly. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Are you sure you're all right? It sounds like you haven't gotten enough sleep." Her genuine concern makes my chest hitch painfully. "I'll take care of it. Let's just get this done first. I must deal with those patents before Hiltman catches on." Fortunately, Cheyenne understands. "Right. Put the coffee on, and I'll see you in 15. She hangs up, and I find myself smiling for the first time since the Ice Princess rang my doorbell at 6. It only gets better when I finally open the door for her. When she sees me, her eyes brighten. Her smile lights up my world. She hurries forward and then comes to a stop. She's eager for my arms despite everything. I'm certainly eager for hers. But the paperwork's waiting, and I know better than to distract myself from that. Finally, I step around behind her to take her coat. "How are you doing?" "I didn't ask earlier." "I didn't sleep," she murmurs, shame nipping at me. "I missed you too much." I close my eyes, nodding, not sure what to say. I didn't sleep either, not daring to admit more. Same reason. "Let's get the filing over with," she resigns, stepping back into her old, sterile role as nothing more than my assistant. I nod again and lead her upstairs into my office, where the folder of signed papers waits. The preparation for the legal filing takes 45 minutes to complete, and another half hour to take to my lawyer downtown. Once Jacoby is done with it, I propose Chinese takeout to Cheyenne, and she agrees. "So, what are you doing for Christmas?" I ask as we bundle the steaming boxes of takeout back in through my door. "Not much of anything," she admits awkwardly. She's already told me that she has no family to speak of. "Want to spend it with me?" It comes out even before I mean it to, and we both blink at each other, startled by my audacity. She opens her mouth, probably to ask me why I'm spending Christmas with one woman when I'm marrying another. She simply asks me why. I lead her into my kitchen, snatching Crystal's cold coffee off the table and setting the warm bag of food cartons in its place. You know how special Christmas is to me. These people who want to be my relatives aren't. You are. Then why? She can't even bring herself to ask the full question. Maybe she's worried the answer will break her heart. I'll explain what I can about this messed up engagement, when I can. Soon. Any time I have in my life I would rather spend with you than them. Something in my expression makes hers soften, and she slips into the seat Crystal vacated hours ago. I'll think about it. I need to at least know that there's a good reason you're marrying someone you don't even like. I take out the cartons one by one, lining them up to buy time. I find the disposable chopsticks and separate a pair with a hard snap as I try to find the right words. Blackmail, I finally admit simply, and I watch her eyes widen. What? Crystal's father is blackmailing me into marrying. They want my money and my holdings, and since Hiltman's attempts at a hostile takeover have failed, he figures he'll get it the old-fashioned way, by forcibly tying me to his family. I grab a couple of black stoneware bowls out of the cupboard as she stares at me in disbelief. What happened? Did you get her pregnant or something? Or something? Let's just say that he's found some skeletons in my family closet, and he'll use them to ruin me if I don't follow his wishes. It's a relief to tell her, even though it makes her unhappy. What she doesn't yet know is that I can never tell her what Hiltman actually has on me. So that's it. You're not two-timing her, you're being forced. Her expression goes from shock to a mix of anger and sympathy. I wondered for so long. This all seems so out of character for you. I set down my chopsticks across my bowl and look over at her. I intend to find a way to counter his blackmail, so I can do what I want. Be with who I want. And I reach over and give her hand a squeeze. Her smile trembles and her eyes get too bright. It might take time. The wedding may go forward. If it does, I can still get out, but the divorce will cost me half my fortune. As I gaze at her earnestly, something shifts inside of me. She's not leaving. She's not judging. She's not even asking for the uncomfortable specifics. Good thing that. She squeezes my hand back, staring at me. Thank you for telling me. I've got no idea what they have on you, but there has to be a way out from under this. You know I'll help you all I can. You are already helping, I mutter thickly, choking up suddenly. You didn't take off the moment I told you the truth. She strokes my hand reassuringly. You really thought I would? Thinking and worrying are two different things. I don't want to lose you. I plant a kiss in the center of her palm. You won't lose me, she promises, her soft eyes looking up at me lovingly, unless you leave me waiting too long. I won't, I say earnestly. I'll find a way to fix this. I'd chuck my whole fortune to have you. She smiles softly and invitingly. You know, the food can wait. We don't make it to my bedroom in time. This seems to be a habit with us. Do whatever you want to me, she whispers, and I grin at the invitation. By the time I'm done with you, you'll need throat drops for a week.
Chapter 9. Cheyenne.
I wake up in a warm darkness, made cozy by the hot bulk of the man breathing softly beside me. I blink at the dim ceiling for a few moments, delicious lassitude mixing unpleasantly with a creeping sense of conflict. The other woman. I never wanted to be in this position, sneaking around behind the back of a girlfriend or wife with a faithless man. But here I am, waking up beside a guy who is marrying someone else in 2 months. As I lie there, I split into 3 and begin to argue with myself. I love him, says one part of me, and he loves me. He's trapped in this marriage and he's trying to get out of it. Then he'll be with me. Then there's the cautious part of me that always kept me safe from predatory men. Men lie to be intimate all the time. You know that. Could he be just taking advantage of your crush on him? And there's the angry, rebellious part that repressed itself for years while thinking that Darren did not want me. What gives this tramp the right to take him from me? He wants to be with me. I'll wreck her life if she tries to interfere. I press my lips, swallowing the lump in my throat. I should go back home to my own apartment and make sure that Darren doesn't become the center of my world when I'm only peripheral to his. The bed is warm, and his muscular body is sleek and hot against my side. I linger, knowing the whole time I shouldn't. I can't sleep, and I don't want to wake Darren, who seems exhausted. I'll never tire of cuddling with him. Could you just be mine instead of hers? I don't have a fortune, but we'll be happy. And you won't have to tie yourself to those horrible people. Then I sigh into my pillow. I watch him sleep for a while longer, but pulling myself together wins out, and I reluctantly slip out of the bed. I shower, do my hair, fix my makeup, get dressed, and the whole time Darren sleeps. When I come out of the bathroom, as polished as when I arrived in his penthouse 4 hours before, he's still snoozing. I wander around for a while, too distracted to drive. It's an old Boston mansion from the Gilded Age, not quite as grand as some of the New York ones, though still opulent. I walk past marble columns, embroidered hangings, a Van Gogh sunflower I examine for a few moments before realizing that, yes, and it's an original. Darren has always been honest and kind. He was only a little bit wild in his youth, which, given rich young guys, is probably saying something. I can't imagine him actually wanting to do anybody any harm. And yet, doubt squeezes in again. What blackmail material could be so juicy and damaging to force him into a marriage? Or is he lying about being blackmailed? What could he have done that he doesn't want anyone to know about? Perhaps it can be sorted out. I walk past a 10-foot-long landscape painted from the peak of Mount Greylock, trying to reassure myself. Maybe things are as he said, he's being forced, and he's trying to get out of this situation. Darren will find a way. He's not just powerful and wealthy, he's clever and he's good. And he loves me. Maybe I should trust him and help him where I can. And yet, as I walk those deserted halls, doubt and frustration gnaw at me. I never wanted to be in this position. May I help you? I look up and see a lean, spiffy man in white gloves and a dark suit, his red hair slicked back into an immaculate, gleaming cap. I'm Jacob, he says with a polite smile. Head of staff here. You are Miss Cheyenne, correct? Yes, I say, offering a hand. I'm the one who looks after Darren in the office, as you do at home. He shakes it briefly, his glove barely transferring warmth. Pleased to meet you. May I assume that our employer does not wish to be disturbed? I wouldn't worry about him calling for anything until around supper. My smile is just passed on as my heartbeat picks up. He was up working until 3, and then Miss Crystal came, I'm aware. The smile goes awry. I'll have supper served with a pot of coffee then. I remember the Chinese food we left in Darren's kitchen, and wonder belatedly if this man cleaned up the cartons. And what he knows or at least suspects. You seem troubled, he observes, making it clear once again that he doesn't miss much. You seem a bit lost. Is everything all right? His dark blue eyes are kind. I take a deep breath and spill a little truth. I'm wondering about some things going on around here. He nods, his eyes fixed on me keenly. Miss Crystal's primary concern is executing the will of her father, I suspect. You should know that she offered me several $1,000s to provide her with information on whether our employer had any female visitors. The delicate way he walks around the subject makes it obvious that he knows everything. And yet, he only seems concerned. What did you tell her? I smiled, accepted the money, went to our employer, and told him everything. Since then, he's been feeding me a set of fictions to keep her happy. He looks at me speculatively. Why is he marrying her, Jacob? I burst with breathless desperation. She's awful. Her father is worse. It doesn't make any sense. Nodding, he ushers me into a nearby office. We stand by the window, which looks out on a sleek but yellowing lawn laced with thin snow. What you must understand, Miss Cheyenne, is that our employer has skeletons in his closet. He has never been a bad man or a cruel one, never committed any crimes, never done any real harm to anyone. He's quiet as he appears. But when his father was murdered, he went slightly mad for a while. I brace myself. Darren has never spoken of his father's murder, except in the vaguest of terms. I know it pains and enrages him to dwell on it, so I do my best never to bring it up. After the case went cold and his father was buried without the poisoner being found, Darren, I fear, became a bit self-destructive. Without delving too deeply into his private business, he made a few reckless decisions when he wasn't fully in control of himself. Unfortunately, any record of his actions would very likely cause a scandal among his shareholders if it became public knowledge, and do both his business and personal reputation irreparable damage. How did Hiltman get his hands on the information, though? I doubt that any of the staff would actually take one of his or his daughter's bribes on Jacob's watch. It's most likely that he hired someone to buy the information from the other persons involved. The scandal generated more rumors than was easy to contain, and any competent investigator could have put the pieces together. Jacob scowls briefly at that, his eyes locked on the line of bare maples beyond the lawn. And if he follows through, marries her, and then gets a divorce, she gets half his fortune and pretty much wins anyway. I peer in that direction and see the far-off hawk he's watching, clutching the top of a dormant maple. It's exactly as you say, he concedes. I don't envy our employer, whatever his indiscretions. I look over at this elegant, seemingly compassionate man, and wonder the same thing I caught myself wondering about Darren. Can I trust him? For now, I simply need to know one thing, he says quietly, gazing at me, with regards to your presence here. For your report to Crystal? I lift an eyebrow somewhere between wary and conspiratorial. Yes. His smile is tight, polite, and a bit amused. Well, our employer is doing more work at home since he began looking for a buyer for his hunting lodge, and he will be requiring my presence here more and more. It comes out smoothly, like I rehearsed it, and I wonder at myself. He lifts his chin and his smile becomes a touch more genuine. His eyes twinkle. Very good then, he says. As he sees me out, he asks, have you considered visiting for our annual Christmas party? I stop to look at him curiously, as he stands with his hand on the door. Won't he be eating with the Hiltmans? I know he wants to spend the day with me, but I have no idea how he plans to pull it off without their intervention. He chuckles, brief and dry, like a cough. I doubt he will spend his favorite holiday with anyone he does not care for. Have a good evening, Miss Cheyenne. Traffic is thick as I drive home. I fight my way through it, my boxy gray Volvo taking over streets made slick and muddy from meltwater. The wind has blown the leaves off the trees. The gutters are full of crimson and gold where the snow doesn't cling. Parting from Darren saddens me again, but I need time to think, and that means time alone. When I'm with him, I can only think of him. Maybe I should stay away for a while. I turn off the main boulevard, onto the narrow side street where my subdivided brownstone awaits. Still, ahead of me, I have all the chores and errands saved for my days off. I decide to do my chores first. I don't want to deal with any more people right now. Someone has parked in my spot again. A black sedan with New York plates and a parking ticket already fluttering away under its windshield wiper. The tow truck is probably coming already. The building manager, Miranda, watches everything around our building like a tiny Cuban hawk. I circle around and find parking a block away. Even though I am well prepared for the winter day, I feel cold on the short walk back to my house. I tell myself I need time away from Darren, but even as I just left him not so long ago, his absence yanks at me.
Chapter 10. Darren.
Where were you until late morning? Crystal doesn't even look up from cutting the thin slice of turkey on her plate, but her voice clearly has a hard edge. I fight not to roll my eyes as she, her father, and a menagerie of cousins and widowed aunts peer at me expectantly. These interrogations are constant, forcing me to lie elaborately and with the virtuosity of a much less moral man. So far, it has been working while I'm behind the scenes with Cheyenne to free myself. I slept in. I give her a patient smile. Sorry, darling. I slept in, and Cheyenne was in my arms. Your location. She has all the warmth of a parole officer. The blood tests. I told you yesterday at breakfast, remember? My voice stays light. We were intimate 4 times between yesterday afternoon and today. 4 times. You've never so much as given me a peck on the cheek, you walking ice sculpture. The blood tests. She looks confused. Yes, the genetic screening, compatibility tests, and all those things you asked for. My voice is endlessly patient. What have you got? Oh, she says quietly and sits back in her chair, blinking. Very good then. Nothing. You're just Daddy's little spy. I search for a gravy boat on their dining table, which is a single 30-foot slice of California redwood. Their entire mansion screams of Las Vegas-style excess, but then there are also strangely barren spots, like this table. No gravy. Shit. And whoever made this turkey sliced it well, but it's as dry as a stack of paper towels. So, how soon will you get those test results? Hiltman brays from across the table. He's the opposite of his nervous, prissy daughter, sprawling in his chair, bald-headed and pale-suited, with his chin sunk into his jowls. I stab my knife into the stack of dry turkey breast slices and glare up at him. 2 weeks. And did you remember to check your sperm count? I want that grandson. His wet smoker's chuckle sounds like a sink backing up. I'm sure you do, I reply, and one of the cousins, a teen girl, lets out a thin giggle. When I glance her way, she busies herself with her meal. She's spindly and nervous like Crystal, and I wonder if her parents plan to use her to rope in some other stranger's fortunes as well. 2 weeks for a full panel? Inconvenient. Crystal eyes me as if I'm somehow responsible, then sniffs again. At least it will be done before Christmas. Maybe you two should get started on that kid now, Hiltman urges with a predatory smile. Give me a little Christmas present. I eye him. This conversation is ridiculous. I'm not some animal you're bringing in for stud. He brays with laughter again. Ha ha. You are if I say you are, kid. You are if I say you are. The others start tittering as well, all except for Crystal, who simply sniffs and stares at me with machine-like coldness. I must get away from these people. I declined after-dinner brandy and cigars with Hiltman, and left as soon as I could. On my way home through the wet streets, I feel sick to my stomach, and not just from the bad cooking. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm never going back to that gilded shithole ever again. I have already decided that I'll never let those people ruin another of my holidays. In my desperation for a distraction, I find that I'm not driving home. I've changed direction on instinct. I'm headed for Cheyenne's. I ring Cheyenne's apartment on the crackly old intercom and wait impatiently until she buzzes me in. Her elevator is broken again, and I take the stairs up to her floor 2 at a time. She greets me at the door in a pair of violet pajamas with tear streaks drying on her cheeks and the smell of takeout pizza in the air. I hug her tight. Looks like you weren't having the greatest Thanksgiving either. No, she mumbles into my chest, her arms sliding around me. We eat pizza on her couch as her tears dry, and Alice's restaurant plays on the TV. I tell her about my insane Thanksgiving dinner. She starts to cry again. I missed you, she says. My heart sinks. I've already decided. I'm done, I announce softly. I'm spending Christmas with you like I said. It will be you, my friends, even Abrams if he wants to come. What about Hiltman and his daughter? I'll hold it at the lodge. Hiltman won't go anywhere with fewer than 1,000 people, and his daughter hates the woods. We'll throw the party on the 23rd and then stay over and have Christmas properly, as a couple. I hesitate, but only for a moment. Some of my friends are familiar with my craziness after my father died, but not everything and not how far I went. Nobody got hurt and nobody has hard feelings, but there will be plenty of hard feelings if my night of ridiculous behavior gets back to my board of directors. What about the blackmail? She asks softly, curling on my lap as she gradually relaxes. Still working that out. I might just take it all on the chin, but I hesitate again. Cheyenne's the one I want to keep this from the most, even more than the board members. Some things aren't easily forgiven. I'm still hoping Abrams will respond to our request for a meeting. I stroke her hair slowly, then sensually, gripping it at the nape and then sliding my fingers back through it. Her head starts to loll submissively in my grip, and I see her eyelids getting heavy. Good girl. Just let me take care of you for a while. Do you think he's afraid that you're on Hiltman's side? She looks up at me with those wide, innocent eyes, and I sigh through my nose. Maybe. But something's definitely up between him and Hiltman, and it seemed to make him pretty wary of everyone from Boston. She pouts thoughtfully. Send him an invitation to your Christmas party and catch him there. It's in his neighborhood, and with the way he talked our ears off, he's lonely. He'll appreciate the invitation no matter what happens. Good idea. I tilt my head and catch her eye. Do you have any friends you would like to invite? A few, but that's pretty out of their way. They'd have to carpool. She's watching my face. I'll arrange transportation, don't worry. This sounds good, it sounds right. It sounds like something normal couples do, and I like it. I want more of it, far away from the gilded world of horrors I just left. I want to introduce you to my friends and not just as my boss. She licks her lips, and a pleading note enters her voice. Please don't make me keep hiding what we have. It's not for much longer. The disappointment in her eyes cuts me. I kiss her eyes closed. I promise. She lifts her mouth to mine, and we kiss tentatively, feeling for each other across an unexpected and alarming gap. She's losing patience with me, and I don't know what to say. So I take her into her bedroom, slip out of my suit, and tie her eyes. I do my best to tell her with caresses just exactly how I feel about her. Deprived of sight, she shivers in the dim bars of light glowing from her row of narrow windows. Outside is a spindly maze of tree branches silhouetted against the darkening sky. I glance up at it as a raven settles on one of them with a heavy rustle. Then I turn back to her, curled on her side, and move up against her, twining our legs. Shortly after, as we catch our breaths, I uncover her eyes and see that her tears are gone. We drowse in each other's arms, ignoring the chill of the room. A hard rain falls while we sleep. She rolls over to watch it hit the window, and I curl up behind her, burying my nose in her loosened hair. Everything is perfect again. I know it can't last. The moment either one of us speaks aloud, the bubble will burst. I brace myself for it, and a moment later she states hesitantly, I need to know that you're going to leave her. It's a quiet plea for reassurance, but it feels like a slap. I wonder what she must think of me, sleeping with her for a month with no clarity that she'll ever be more than the other woman. I kiss her shoulder. I'm going to leave her. When? I close my eyes, quiet for a moment. She knows the facts of the matter already, all except for the specific dirt Hiltman has on me. But maybe she doesn't really understand my feelings on the matter. Sending you home every time after making love with you is already killing me, I murmur in her ear. If I had just approached you sooner, we'd be together, and none of this would have happened. I live every day with that regret, and I'm sorry that you have to. I can see a faint reflection of her face in the dim, rain-spattered window, her expression thoughtful and sad. That's not an answer, Darren. I can't give you a date, I mutter regretfully. They have me by the balls, and without enough dirt on Hiltman, I can't shake them loose. It's as vulnerable as I've ever been with her. I feel uncomfortable. To my absolute shock, she rolls over at once and looks at me unflinchingly. Then we've got to get that dirt fast, because I can't live like this either. I love you. And I won't be the other woman, and let Crystal put her hands on you. I remember Crystal and her strange attitude of suppressed loathing toward me and everyone else around her. I don't think she actually wants to, I comment blandly. It's just a business arrangement to her. You know, I really wonder about her, she muses thoughtfully. How voluntary is this marriage really? She doesn't seem to care. Then she's either drugged up or lying, and a very good actress. You don't care about a move that defines your entire future. That's a very good point. I nuzzle her hair as I gaze out over the rain-swept lawn beyond my curtains. Maybe I should ask her. But I'm not relishing the prospect. Crystal is cold and throws up walls whenever I try to talk about anything intimate or personal. I've always thought that she was just a pain. But perhaps there's more to it than that. Maybe it's not me she hates or the world, but her situation. What else can we do? Cheyenne looks back at me urgently, a plea in her eyes that burns me worse than anger. I could deal with her being pissed off at me, yelling at me, but seeing the raw pain unclothed in anger breaks my heart. My mind just keeps going back to Abrams, I admit. I haven't come up with anything more. Except maybe just giving up and running off with Cheyenne. Selling the business and just leaving. What about him? I'm not sure why, but Hiltman seemed extraordinarily worried by the prospect of my talking to the old hermit. I slide my hand down her bare arm. So much so he set Crystal on me, until he got a satisfactory lie about whether or not we had talked. If he's so worried that you'll talk to Abrams, it's likely about those patents, she reminds me, but that doesn't feel completely right to me. The patents themselves will take years to do him damage. I've done the calculations. He probably has too, if he even knows what Abrams has. Lightning flashes. I nuzzle the top of Cheyenne's head again and stare out at the storm, my eyes taking in the rain, but my mind is up on that mountain again. There must be more to it than that. Abrams knows something that Hiltman wants to be kept private. I'm going to find out what that is. But meanwhile, we must keep our plans very, very quiet. Just like everything else between us, she sighs, and I hug her gently. But then, quite unexpectedly, her skin mists over in a cold sweat. Are you okay? I ask worriedly. I feel a little queasy, she mumbles, swallowing hard. I need water. I nod, but an invasive worry tugs at me as she slips out of bed and heads for her small bathroom. Even the sight of her pert little bottom swaying as she walks doesn't do much to dampen it. When she comes back to bed, she sighs and nestles against me. Better. She shakes her head. Maybe pizza so late was a bad idea, she mumbles. That's probably it. I try to convince myself, but the worry doesn't go away.
Chapter 11. Cheyenne.
How bad is it? Darren's deep, concerned voice floats through the bathroom door as I push myself off my knees. My throat is burning and my mouth tastes like a soap dispenser. He's been here overnight 3 nights in a row, showing up in the evening, sleeping over, and then making me breakfast. It's been wonderful. Even if the place is too small for 2, it's the one place we don't have to worry about intrusions. Neither Crystal nor her father would set foot in my neighborhood, the wusses. But this morning, the idol's been completely shattered. My appetite has reversed itself and I can't make it stop. Cheyenne? Darren calls again as I'm rinsing my mouth out. My tender midsection heaves again. I almost choke. Damn it. Bad, I manage finally, my chest feeling thick and sore. Throwing up is one of my least favorite things in the world. It's been a week since we first lay in this bed, pledging to chase up Abrams and get whatever information he has on Hiltman. All 3 of our follow-up emails have gone unanswered. But we're still trying, because there's nothing else to be done about this, unless Crystal or somebody else in the know spills the beans on him. That doesn't seem likely. Crystal remains unapproachable but nosy. Nothing has come of my research on Hiltman's relationship to Abrams, and now I'm sick. I have been nauseated every day since Thanksgiving, so much so that I suspected food poisoning. I missed my period. But I have an IUD. What in the world is going on? Maybe we should take you to a doctor. Darren taps at the door again. Could you let me in? I don't want you to see me this way. I wipe my mouth awkwardly, my chest heaving. I reach back and flush the toilet, then lean over the sink to splash water on my face. I'm a mess. I don't give a shit what you look like. Let me in. He taps insistently, and I finally sigh. Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. The door opens, and he moves into the room. I awkwardly mop at my face with a fistful of toilet paper like a sniffly teenager. You're pale as a ghost, he notes in a worried tone, and I nod up pathetically. Maybe the doctor is a good idea, I mumble as he helps me get cleaned up. Okay. Do you need anything before we go? He keeps an arm around me as we move slowly out of the bathroom. A sweater. My mind races. I hope he doesn't notice I'm covered in icy sweat. All right then. He gets me to my bed, and I sit down while he rummages through my closet. My head pounds, and my muscles hurt from throwing up, but I gamely throw on the fuzzy purple pullover he brings to me. Do you have a fever? No. I can't give voice to my fear yet either. Let's just hit the doctor's office. I'll call over to see if they can fit you in. Otherwise, I know someone else. He pulls out his cell phone. How did we get to this point so fast? He has my doc's number. I have his house key. And I may have his baby in my belly. I'm scared, I say impulsively. No specifics. It's enough. He puts his big, warm hand on my back, rubbing it soothingly. It's gonna be okay, he assures me. Neither one of us knows if that's true. But I feel better anyway. We drive to the medical office through a thin flurry of snow, passing half a dozen fender benders in the thick traffic. I huddle in the passenger seat and wrap my arms around my belly, wondering what to think of myself. Well, here I am, about to become a single mom because my boss has been cheating on his fiancée with me. I feel like a walking stereotype, and an idiot. I can only hope, as our tires skid on the thin gray snow that coats the road, that Darren is as good, as kind, and as attached to me as I've been thinking. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do. The waiting room is empty. Only desperately sick fools like me venture outside. Dr. Grebe is tall and sharp-nosed with a strong jaw and narrow, intelligent gray eyes. I sit there in that familiar pale blue gown and tell her about my symptoms while Darren paces audibly in the waiting room outside. You think you might be pregnant? She finally asks. I shift uncomfortably and nod. I don't understand how, though. The IUD has been in less than a year. Should still be good, right? She furrows her brow and checks my chart. Says here the implant was a success. The lab verified it a month later. It doesn't make any sense. Getting an IUD was a decision fueled by the desire to avoid this exact scenario. I didn't know when I would finally meet someone worth sleeping with. Just because it hadn't happened by the time I decided to get the implant didn't mean that I never would. So I didn't worry about pregnancy all those times I was with Darren, never once thinking that my protection would fail me completely when I needed it the most. Well, we don't know if you're pregnant for a fact, but you certainly are showing all the classic symptoms. We'll know more when your blood and urine panels come up. The guys at the lab claim they just cleared their backlog, so it shouldn't be long. It didn't take long at all, but it felt like an eternity. With my heartbeat pounding in my ears, all I can do is ask, so why didn't the IUD work? Well, I'll have to check, but my suspicion is that if you check for your IUD strings, you won't find them. You may have expelled the IUD during a recent period. Have you been able to feel your string recently? A flush of embarrassment heats my face as I wonder if I messed up. Had I even checked in the last dizzy month? I thought I felt it after my last period, but a lot has been going on. I consider what stress does to my body and how stressful it's been, first without Darren and then with him, but with no guarantees. My periods have been especially difficult lately. Wouldn't I have noticed? Not always. If your period's bad enough, the cramping and pain of expelling the IUD wouldn't feel unusual. The doctor tilts her head and peers at me, then brings me a cup of water. I sip it while I'm pregnant with Darren's child clangs around in my head. And he doesn't even suspect. I have no idea how to tell him. That must be what happened. So, what happens now? It feels like my head is floating off my shoulders, and the noise of my heart is too loud. That depends on you. Do you want to keep the baby? She's watching me carefully. I wonder if she's considering giving me a sedative. I should first talk to the father about that. I take a long shivering breath, my chest hurting. Maybe I do need a sedative, but I'm too queasy to ask for it. Let me know what you decide, she says kindly, and I nod and practically stumble out. If he begs off of being with me now, I don't know what I'm going to do. I ask him to drive us out to the nearest park. What is it? He asks me very gently. I'm pregnant. The silence stretches between us. Tears threaten and I swallow them back like bile. The IUD, he asks quietly. The doc suspects an expulsion. I couldn't feel the string when I checked. I don't know whether to apologize or not. Oh. His expression closes, and his gaze flicks over the spidery limbs of the trees with their payload of sparrows. An accident then. A hot lash of anger rushes through me. Of course it was. He startles a bit, then nods. Sorry, that came out wrong. I'm still stinging, and he's still quiet as he drives us back to his mansion. As he pulls into the driveway and the iron gate closes behind us, he finally says, I have to think about what to do. But meanwhile, I can't say anything to anyone, right? No way to keep the bitterness out of my tone. Now I'm 10 times the dirty secret than I was before. He pulls to a full stop halfway up the drive, turning to reason with me. If Hiltman and his daughter find out you are pregnant, they will have that much more leverage against us. He sounds so terribly sensible, but right now, in this moment, with the world caving in on me, I have to fight not to tell him to piss off. What do they have on you, that you do everything Hiltman says? He huffs out a breath. If I told you what a stupid shithead I was right after Dad's murder. As his words trail off, I remember what his butler said. I lean back into my seat and close my eyes. Leaving me to guess won't do anybody any good either, Darren. The look of mild panic that this big powerful man gives me deepens my despair and worry. I need him to be honest and strong with me. Instead, he's reminding me of an oversized teenager. Look, I just found out I got you pregnant. Can't the rest wait? I roll my eyes closed, my heart sinking. Fine? Of course, it's not fine. But it becomes even less fine when we drive up to the parking circle and discover Crystal's white Rolls parked at the top of the drive. Crap. I'm sorry. I'll find out what she wants. Do you want to relax here for a minute? He's asking, not telling, but I understand the implication and nod to let him know that I won't be causing a scene. He parks behind the Rolls and gets out. At the same time, Crystal's small bald driver comes out of his seat and opens the door for her. She comes out wrapped in ermine, her head up and her eyes flashing in our direction. I sit in my seat exhausted, nauseated and hurt, fighting anger and fear. I watch the two through the windshield as they approach each other and start arguing. I can't bring myself to move, get out, or speak. I can only watch them. Why is that woman in your car? She demands. She is my assistant, remember? I know you have trouble telling our employees apart, but this is getting ridiculous. He keeps his voice surprisingly even. What's she doing coming to your home in the front seat of your private car? She demands again, pointing at me as if I am the culprit. She's been sleeping with me for a month. That's what he should say. She's been sleeping with me for a month, we love each other, and I really want to punch you in the teeth for getting in the way. Instead, I just keep watching and listening as Darren struggles to rein in his temper. Where in the world should I put her? The trunk. He shrugs at her, his voice rising with disgusted astonishment. Get rid of her, Crystal snaps. Have someone else drive her home. We have to talk about the wedding. What about the wedding? He demands, finally sounding defensive. Send your assistant home first and we'll talk about it. Her voice rises stridently. Don't, I think frantically, unable to call out, unable to speak my truth aloud. We have to talk about the pregnancy. The baby. My heart sinks as Darren's anger dies down to sullen embers right in front of me. Fine. My eyes closed on tears. Coward. I have never felt so alone in my entire life.
Chapter 12. Darren.
What exactly is it that you want from me? I growl at Crystal from across the living room. The fire crackles furiously beside us as she folds her arms tightly. My father wants to know why you spend so much time with your secretary instead of with me. There's something strangely placid and neutral in her stare. He expects an answer. Your father seems to think that he owns the both of us, I reply and see a flicker of something in her eyes. He's wrong, you know. She swallows and glances away. He practically does. Enlighten me. A knot explodes in the fireplace with a bang and a shower of sparks. I glance over at it, then back at her. If you think that he has a gun to your head now and you resent it, you need to consider that he's only had you like this for a few months. Her eyes meet mine, and I see that flicker again, like a lantern in a snowstorm. I've been in his custody for over 20 years. Something clicks into place inside my head. I take a good long look at the woman in front of me. Are you marrying me to get away from him? I no longer want to send her away. I want to understand what's going on. She surprises me with a low, sad laugh. Don't tell me you care. I've been trying to figure out why you're complying with this when you so obviously don't like me or the situation. Is he forcing you, or are you just that desperate? She walks toward me, past me, over to the window where snow has begun to fall. My mother killed herself because of him, she murmurs as she lays a hand on the glass. It was soon after your father's death. I will never know what he said or did to drive her over the edge. But I know that she gave him 20 years of loyalty, and he repaid her with pain. He has no sons, so he uses me to trap you and secure his legacy. She folds her arms, her back to me, poised like a statue. You didn't answer my question. But I now know more about her than before, and what I am learning sends a chill of horror up my spine. I ask again, is he forcing you to marry me, or are you going along with this to get away from him? Her smile is her usual flat, polite curve of the lips, but her eyes are full of despair. Both. I am beginning to glimpse that cold light of truth. I press on. Have you ever thought of just leaving? I would be perfectly willing to help you. She surprises me again with a laugh, this one loud and sharp and almost mocking. She turns around, smirking emptily, the despair never leaving her expression. Thanks for the thought. But there's a reason my mother killed herself instead of just leaving him. He controls all the money in this household. I don't have any money to help me get away. And it gets worse, she voluntarily continues. My father gets rid of people who aren't convenient to him. Or he gets rid of their loved ones. I have difficulty believing her. I always knew Hiltman was a predatory jerk, but I never figured him to be a monster. It takes a while, but I speak again. I'm sorry. I've misjudged you. He's threatened to kill you if you don't comply. Tears pool in her eyes, the ice princess melting. Not me, she corrects almost gently. My girlfriend. Oh. Shoot. No wonder you never wanted to touch me. I thought you didn't like me personally. No, you're fine, except you're not her, and he's forcing you on me. She dabs at her eyes with a silver lace hanky. She's the only one I want touching me. It's nothing personal. Yeah. I get that. I feel completely at a loss. I've been a jerk. I'm sorry. Now I have two desperate women to worry about, with Hiltman menacing all of us. My father thinks you're going to try and get out of the marriage. He will distribute the video footage if you do so. And I'll be in trouble. So she did know about the blackmail. It all falls into place. She's keeping a choke hold on me because her father's yanking her chain mercilessly. Your dad can't get away with everything he's been doing, I mutter. Not forever. Again, that despairing smile. He can't be stopped, and so I must obey him, she says in a tiny, wintry voice. But I'm happy you care enough to try. There's no point encouraging her to rebel. I don't know who exactly he has killed, how, or even why. But my suspicions sicken me. I know now why she's terrified of him. So, what do we do now? What do you want to do now? She asks, probing. I guess you should reassure your father that the wedding's still on, I say quietly. It's clear the extremes to which Hiltman will go to get his way. But instead of scaring me, it gives me hope, and renewed determination. Hiltman has murdered someone. Maybe several someone. That's 10 times than what he's got on me. If I uncover the details, he's mine. And I'm free to marry who I want. I think I know who knows. Abrams has helped me before. Will he again? The Christmas invitation. Maybe that will be enough. Tell him I have a prior commitment for Christmas. She blinks. He won't like that very much. Then don't tell him. Pretend you don't know. Blame me. Don't let him blame you. I try to smile at her reassuringly, but she looks away, expression troubled and arms still folded tightly across her chest. 2 minutes after Crystal leaves, I'm pacing in my entryway with a headache deepening in my temples. Cheyenne won't answer her phone. My call goes to voicemail 3 times. Maybe she's taking a nap. She's had a terrible day. Or perhaps she just needs some space. But I have news and worries and 10,000 tons of guilt for sending her away. I have to talk to her. 10 minutes later, I'm driving to her house.
Chapter 13. Cheyenne.
I haven't talked to my mother in the 10 years since her custodial rights were revoked. She tried to shoehorn her way back into my life 3 years ago, sending me message after disjointed message after finding my college email address. She lost track of me once I graduated, but I have her current phone number. I sit here in my nightie, bundled in bed with tears on my cheeks, and stare down at her number in the old message saved on my phone. I don't know why I saved her emails. I don't even know why I'm thinking of calling her. What the heck am I going to say to her anyway? I mutter, drawing my hand back from the phone as if it were a mousetrap about to snap off my fingers. Hi Mom, long time no talk. Are you sober enough to remember this for once? I laugh hysterically for a moment. Just wanted to let you know, you're going to be a grandma. Kid's going to be fatherless, just like me. I don't let myself think about her most of the time. I'd never had even one conversation with her when she wasn't drunk. So why then, do I feel the need to talk with her now? Am I really this desperate? I should be used to being lonely by now. I scoff sadly and close my eyes. A part of me remembers that this is just one disappointment. I don't know if it means that Darren's going to abandon me. Another part of me remembers that I'm tired, sick, in pain, and hormonal. I could be blowing this way out of proportion. But it sure feels like a disaster to me. Thinking back to my teenage years, I remember learning why my mother was so drunk and broken. The coward who knocked her up and left her, the father I will never know, disappeared at the first whiff of fatherhood, ruining her chances at a good education and a better job. I swore growing up I would never get myself into the same situation. I wouldn't let a man plant his seed and leave us. I wouldn't raise his baby alone with my life ruined and all my prospects with it. Now look at me. Despite my best intentions, it seems that that's exactly what I did. I'm pulled in multiple directions. It would be easy to tell my doctor, I don't want the pregnancy. It would be easy to self-indulgently fall apart, turn off my phone, and sleep through the rest of the week. Instead, I take some deep breaths, trying to clear my head enough so I can at least get some rest. This was just bad luck. I wasn't irresponsible. Darren wasn't either. It hurts. What does Hiltman have hanging over him to turn him such a coward? I breathe deeply. Maybe I am looking at this wrong. I go to the window and gaze absently at the falling snow. Darren's being here made the cramped old place feel warm, like a home, for the first time since I moved in, instead of only a place where I stash myself until my debts are paid off. Boston winters are brutal. I've always spent them alone, depressed. Darren keeps promising me I won't have to spend this one alone, but he let that ice princess drag him away just as he learned we're expecting a child together. I could just quit, I say aloud to the empty room. Quit this half-relationship with Darren, quit my job, and quit Boston. Go someplace warmer and kinder, give my love to a man who doesn't talk a big game, and then disappoint me the moment things get difficult. But the idea of that sends a stab of pain through me so intense that I put my hand over my heart. It's not just the intimate moments. Our honeymoon period lasted all of 3 days before reality set in, so it's not just infatuation. I said that I loved him. I meant it. He said he loved me. I know he meant it too. Is love enough? Especially when the Hiltmans have him trapped? I wipe my eyes and go put on tea, hoping the peppermint will calm my tummy. Then something unexpected happens. Standing there, my mind running back through the wonderful, maddening last several weeks, asking myself, can I really walk away from this? And quietly crying, suddenly my tears dry up. My cheeks are hot. My heart is pounding. I'm shaking. I drop the tea ball into the steaming water and feel my nails bite into my palm. With some detachment, I look curiously at my hand and realize I'm clenching my fist. This feeling is so unfamiliar. I'm furious. No. I am not running away, I am not falling apart, and I am not backing down. The Hiltmans have my man trapped, and I'm going to fight for him. I have Abram's phone number. I'm not supposed to use it, but all our attempts to set up a meeting aren't working. I dial it with trembling fingers, my jaws clenched. This is James Abrams, comes his familiar voice. I don't recognize this number. Dr. Abrams, this is Cheyenne Bell, Dr. Darren Grace's assistant. Please don't hang up. There's something hard and strident in my voice. I don't tone it down. Miss Bell, what's this about? He sounds startled but not unkind, and he hasn't hung up. I know you've probably got some really good reason why you haven't answered our emails. Ordinarily, I would respect your privacy and leave it alone. But right now, I'm out of options. I'm afraid I don't follow, he says carefully. I'll cut to the point then. Right now, Dr. Brian Hiltman is blackmailing Darren to marry his daughter. If he succeeds, he will very likely ruin not only Darren's life but also mine, and our babies. The long silence that follows has me tapping my feet uncontrollably. That's actually quite horrifying. I wouldn't put it past the man. I hear him open a bottle and take a swallow from it. And I'm sure you're being honest, as I'm sure you would not purposely embarrass someone you're crazy about. Sorry, say what? The way you look at him when you think he's not looking. I noticed. He did too. There's almost a gently teasing note in his voice. But I'm not sure why you're telling me this. Because I need your help. We do. Well, I know you know something about Hiltman. Don't you? Something that could hurt him? Something he wouldn't want getting out. I sound like I'm begging. I can't help it. Another agonizingly long pause. I might, he says. He sounds wary. So you're looking for some way to counter Hiltman's blackmail? I close my eyes. Please don't let me make a terrible mistake in trusting him. Yes. I may have something that can help you. I don't want to get your hopes too high yet. But I may very well have a lovely Christmas present for the both of you. There's something strangely hard in his voice and cold beneath the kindness. I'm left wondering about it as he hangs up, and I put my phone back in my pocket. I'm just sitting down at my tiny kitchen table with my mug when the intercom crackles. Darren's voice pushes through the static. He sounds worried. Apologetic. For a moment I do nothing, my heart in my throat, but my back straight. I take a swallow of tea. Darren's at my door 30 seconds later. I didn't know he could run that fast. I open it to find him out of breath, snowflakes in his hair. I worried you wouldn't let me in, he admits in a raw voice, his powerful body filling the doorway, but his eyes vulnerable. I take a deep breath, stepping back to let him in. I thought about it. You'd have deserved it too, after sending me off like that. I turn my back to him, sit down, and wrap my hands tightly around my mug. Not gonna offer me a cup? He asks, looking hurt. Tea water's hot. You know where the mugs are. He nods and brews himself up a cup without complaint, stirring in some sugar. You know I didn't have a choice, he says. I scoff audibly. Of course you did. You could be honest and confront what he has on you. You just found out that I'm pregnant with your child. That's more important than covering your butt. He comes around in front of me. Wow. Okay. How are you expecting me to handle this then? I take a scalding swallow of my tea to keep myself from snapping at him further, wipe the water from my eyes and steel myself for what I feel has to happen. I want to know exactly what Hiltman has on you and why you let him control you this much. His chest hitches. No. Why? My voice cracks. Do you think I won't leave you over all this crap just to protect myself? He struggles to control himself for a moment and then says in a slow, measured voice, "If you knew, you probably wouldn't want me anyway." My heart sinks, but I lift my chin. Darren, if you don't take that chance and tell me, I guarantee you I will want you out of my life. He huffs slightly, his eyes avoiding mine. That's blackmail. No, that's reality. I'm pregnant. This changes everything, and you know that. The least you can do is tell me why I have to go through all this crap. The tea tastes good. The nip of pain in my tongue takes my mind off the nausea. I take another sip and wait. Finally, he sighed and nodded his head, took his mug, and settled into the seat across from mine. Fine.
Chapter 14. Cheyenne.
I'm the one who found my father's body, is how he begins, and immediately my gut clenches. I force myself to encourage him to continue. We never really were all that close when I was young, you know, not until I was old enough to join the family business. Then things got a lot better. He always wanted me to take over for him, and even if I wasn't much of a son to him, I was his heir. He coughs and then swallows his tea. Nobody was expecting any trouble. I mean, of course, my father had enemies. Hiltman started going after my family business way before Dad died. He tried to bribe his way onto the board twice. He even tried a hostile takeover. I lick my lips. Was he the only one? I don't think so. Dad was pretty private about the business, but he warned me about 5 or 6 men, not just Hiltman. He scoffed. Including 2 guys on the board. Oh. Great. That's a lot of powerful people to watch out for. So what happened? That was before you and I met. I had already received my doctorate and was working at the company full-time. He sets his mug down and stares down into it. My father and I were spending more time together outside work. That night, he asked me to come by late for cigars and drinks. He said he had something to talk to me about. He kept his gaze on the table. I let myself in. He didn't greet me at the door. That was new. A little alarming. Each little sentence sounded like it was being yanked out of his chest by force. I closed my eyes, leaning back in my chair. I didn't expect him to start with this. But maybe I should have. This is the source of whatever craziness he got caught up in afterward. I don't remember finding him. That's the weird thing. You'd figure I would. I even gave a statement to the police, and it was accurate, but I have no idea what it says. I want to reach out to him, but I know that even if he isn't deflecting, he's telling me all of this because he wants to justify or excuse whatever happened next. What's the next thing you do remember? He smirks self-deprecatingly. I was drunk. It was my father's wake. Abrams was there in shock. Hiltman showed up. I remember the 2 of them got into an argument in one of the side rooms, but I never knew what it was about. I just know that Abrams left town the next day, like he was afraid of Hiltman. Maybe he was, I muse. Mysteries aren't my strong suit, he admits. Not outside of a biochem lab. But did you ever suspect that Abrams knew something before now? It's strange looking at Darren this way, seeing him confused and vulnerable. It doesn't make me think any less of him. If he was being an emotionally closed jerk like a lot of guys in his tax bracket, that would bother me. I wasn't thinking straight about it for a long time, and then I was trying not to think about it at all. But anyway, there I was at the wake when my father's partners started arriving. They knew that the company was now in my hands, and though the legal papers had yet to be signed, they wanted to make it clear that I had their loyalty. It was pretty touching. I found it curious that they also brought along their families, including 4 daughters around my age. My eyebrows start to climb. These are the same guys currently sitting on the board? He winces. Yeah. Okay, so how stupid did he get? Under the circumstances, but now I'm really getting worried. Go on. Well, I was really down. The girls were all friends and they noticed. I don't know how many drinks it took or how long or how much coaxing was involved, but next thing I knew, we were making plans to meet afterward. I ventured slowly. You and all 4 girls? Yeah. He gets up suddenly, downing his tea in a desperate bid to make this all disappear, setting the mug aside and going to the window. After a moment, I follow him. I just wanted the pain and outrage go away. The police knew my father was poisoned, but they called it a suicide. The bitterness on his face alarms me. Do you think someone paid them off? Absolutely. So do my father's friends. Problem is, there's no proof. His shoulders were so tense. Okay, no wonder you were off the rails at the wake. Still, I don't like it. He looks back at me anxiously. So you forgive me for it then? My eyebrow goes back up. Go back to the part where you slept with 4 of your board members' daughters in a hotel room the night of your father's funeral. He cringes. Right. I'm not gonna say we didn't have a good time. But there was a lot of alcohol and illicit substances involved and other things. So I didn't notice when one of them started recording us. I nearly spewed out my tea. What? He winces again, but this time I can see the tips of his ears turn red. Yeah, well, like I said. Not my finest hour. You idiot. Glad to hear it. So what happened? Besides the lots of times being intimate? The joke's so weak his smile wavers. I roll my eyes. Right. The intimate tape. Hum. I look him right in the eyes. Did you get her to erase it? No. His eyes avoid mine. Oh, for pity's sake, Darren. What happened to it? 6 months later, one of the girls contacts me to say that her phone was stolen with a copy of the video in it. Clearly a contract job paid for by Hiltman. He goes back to looking out the window, focusing on things far away. That's a monumental indiscretion, I comment. He grunts. I know I'm twisting the knife, but a tape? Really? So, either you marry his ice princess daughter, or he sends the board a video of you boinking and doing illicit substances with 4 of their daughters. I still haven't touched him. I'm not sure if I want to comfort him or smack him. There's more to it than that. He holds his breath and turns tentatively back to me. He seems relieved that I haven't laughed at him or thrown him out on his ear. But then he truly shocks me. Either Crystal marries me or she faces even worse. He's threatened her girlfriend. Found out today. My jaw drops. There's a gun to her head? No wonder she's so angry at you. He smiles sadly. Yeah. That's what I said. So now I have you, our baby, Crystal, and her girlfriend to consider, not to mention my own reputation. Oh. I look down, dreading what I know I am about to say to him. You know, I know today has been a lot, but this is important too. I don't think I can do much more of this sneaking around. Today hurt, Darren. You mean my sending you home to talk to Crystal right after we found out that you're pregnant? Yeah. I put my hand on the glass, feeling the cold radiating through it. I'm suddenly quite tired of this place. I want to go back to the lodge, I say quietly. Things were simple up there. Me too, he murmurs, and very gently, hesitantly, Darren lays his hand on my back. Once I find a way to fix this, we can spend as much time up there as you want. But can you fix it? I don't tell him about the call with Abrams yet. He told me not to get my hopes up, so I don't want to do that to Darren either. I can and I will. I've let Hiltman drag me around for too long, and now it's hurt you. So I must. I turn and face him, standing close, looking deeply into his eyes. I can't wait on this much longer, Darren. And you know that if you let Hiltman drag you into this marriage, he will have everything you have. He closes his eyes, tired, and nods. I know. In anger and love, I start crying again, just tears rolling down my face, which stays stony with determination. When, Darren? Christmas, he determines. I'll have us both free of this mess by Christmas. A few moments later, I pull myself together enough to speak. Okay, I murmur finally. I'll hold you to that.
Chapter 15. Darren.
Merry Christmas. I'm feeling it for the first time since the holiday season started. Christmas gifts have been sent out, including a large box to Crystal and an envelope to her father. I fill the trunk and back seat of my SUV with packages and treats for Cheyenne and my friends, who will be joining us at the lodge. It's all decked out and ready to go. My staff spent the morning cooking, cleaning, trimming the tree, and making it as much like the Christmases of my youth as they could. I'm psyched. This is going to be awesome. It'll be a steady 40 degrees all day according to the weather reports. The roasts have come out perfectly, the tree is trimmed, and all my trail cameras are in place, the footage ready to share. And best of all, in spite of everything, Cheyenne is beside me. How are you doing? I ask her softly as we wind our way up the mountain. She's looking queasy again. Morning sickness is kicking her butt, though she rarely complains. I'm okay. You sure? I could slow down. I ease off the gas. She lets out a sigh of relief. Thank you, she murmurs, pink-cheeked. I was getting dizzy. I've got a little box burning a hole in my front trouser pocket, making me wish the party was already over so I can corner her alone. I promised her I would resolve this all by Christmas, and though it might cost me my business, I'm going ahead with it. I'm keeping my promise. I'm calling Hiltman's bluff, and I've made sure he can't hurt his daughter either. He'll rage at his Christmas party today, alone. And even if he releases that tape, I'll find a way to bounce back. Better to take that hit than to lose Cheyenne. I had to be very clever in taking care of business in these weeks leading up to my party. I made sure to arrange things so that if anyone gets hurt, I'll be the only one. It will be hard to celebrate and even harder to propose, with the board members' reaction to the tape looming over me. I'm hyper-aware of Crystal's warning about her father and how Hiltman scares Abrams so much he hides on a mountainside under radio silence. I'll absorb the danger too. You've been quiet for a while. What are you thinking about? About the surprise I have for you, I tease her. She is my reason for everything I'm doing. What kind of surprise? You'll see, I say with a hint of glee, and the surprise and curiosity on her face is like a flash of sun through dark clouds. It took weeks to clean up from the Thanksgiving snowstorm, between plowing off the snow, clearing debris, fixing power lines and everything else broken. The very landscape was changed. The broken-off trunks of trees jut from the earth all over the mountainside, showing golden flashes of fresh wood at their tops. It's foreboding, yet it reminds me of those wild 3 days as well. Wow. I didn't realize the storm did this much damage, she observes. How in the world did I not hear half a mountain's worth of trees coming down in pieces all around us? I grin widely. We were busy. She blushes and looks down, lips quirking in a smile. Oh. Right. She has no idea what's coming. She simply decided to trust me, which is wonderful because she knows that I'm risking everything for her. Today's going to be full of surprises. So, how many people are we expecting? 4 besides us. I sent Abrams an invitation, but who knows with him? She smiles vaguely. He might show up with a nice Christmas present for us. Hope so. I'm baffled by his radio silence. Maybe he really thinks Hiltman and I are in cahoots, or that Hiltman simply blackmails me into working for him. It's all speculation at this point. My father's old partner remains a mystery to me. Maybe one day I'll know his story if the cancer doesn't take him away too soon. We're the first ones to arrive. The lodge is lit up with Christmas lights, and I see the tree twinkling behind the large front window. Fresh tracks from Jacob's car show that he and the rest of the staff probably left just minutes before. Looks like everything's ready to go. Want some eggnog? Little rich for me right now. Maybe some sparkling cider. She takes my hand as I help her out of the car. I guess I'm off booze for now too. I glance away with an awkward little smile as I lock up the SUV. Oh right. The nog comes in leaded and unleaded, but rich food and drink are increasingly off my dear Cheyenne's menu. Just in time for the holidays, poor thing. The Christmas party's an early afternoon affair as everyone's off for the weekend, and it becomes deathly cold up here at night. I wanted to ascertain that I was conveniently out of town when the Hiltmans held their own party. Nobody, neither staff nor friends, questioned why I wanted the party up here in the lodge. I guess they all heard me talk about my Christmases in these mountains often enough that it came as no surprise. As for my staff, I sent them home for the weekend with vacation pay after they finished preparations to make up for the extra trip out of town. They went home with gifts and bonuses. Only a skeleton security crew is on duty until after New Year's. And if we do go home between then and now, Cheyenne and I will make the most of that extra privacy. If things go as I plan. You think you'll be able to eat? There's turkey. And goose and roast beef. I tend to go overboard on my holiday spreads. Yeah, I'll be fine. I pretty much know what makes me sick now. To me, it seems certain foods get to her more than others, mostly before mid-afternoon, so I'm not sure how she keeps track of it all. I unlock the door and lead her inside. The house is aglow from candlelight and colored Christmas lights. So strange to be back here, she comments as she looks around. The place looks almost otherworldly, and so does she. I watch the gleams from the Christmas lights bounce down her braid as she takes off her coat. Is it? I hang both our coats up in the closet. Well, more like, strange to be back here knowing a bunch of other people are coming. I kinda see this as our place. Somewhere I don't feel like sharing. Her eyes search my face as I return to her side. I kiss her. Being outside has chilled her skin, but her lips are warm. Well, just remember, they're going home in a few hours. We don't have to. She slides her hands up my chest and tucks her head under my chin. Are you sure that Hiltman won't give you trouble for missing his dinner? Luncheon. I've already missed it. If he wants to give me trouble, he can do so. No more jumping on his say-so, especially since I'm the one paying for it most. I look her in the eyes, hands on her shoulders. I blocked his number. Her eyes widen as this sinks in. He'll get back at you for that. Yeah, I know. He'll also get back at me for telling him I'm not marrying his daughter. I'm certain of it. I may even lose my business. My smile goes grim as I slide my hands down her arms to take hers. But she looks stunned, somewhere between impressed and horrified. But Darren, you know what he'll do. Cheyenne. I look intensely into her eyes. It was never really about the board finding out. The hardest part was telling you. It had been. I knew then that there was a gun to my head. Whatever Hiltman planned for me was nothing compared to losing not only the woman I love, but also our child. But that didn't make confessing about just how dumb I had been, how impulsive, how I'd been all over 4 other women and on film any easier. I don't understand. What could I do that was worse than losing your business and your reputation in the field? She gazes at me in bewilderment. It never occurred to her that I would simply face the music if I couldn't resolve the situation. Cheyenne, losing my business still leaves me a billionaire. My dad's no longer around to disappoint. And not having the business will free me up to be with you and our kid. I stroke the back of my hand down her cheek. If the alternative is losing you, I'll take that hit. She seems utterly surprised, poor thing. I feather a kiss onto her nose. Then she lets out a squeal and hugs me tight. That's better, I pull her close to me. She's quiet, her shoulders shaking with emotion. Her tears soak through my shirt. but I know that at least one of them is from relief.
Chapter 16. Cheyenne.
Anyway, so Darren's like halfway down the slope by the time I untangle myself from the drunken girl, and he's laughing his butt off the whole way. He was still giggling when I met up with him at the bottom of the slope. The big red-haired man with the lumberjack's beard, Mike, if I remember right, laughs to himself and takes a swallow of his heavily spiked nog. "I was not giggling," Darren says as he fights down a case of the giggles. I hide my smile in a swallow of cider. It's been a pretty good party so far. Aside from the one the office holds every year, I've never actually been to a Christmas party before, and I worried that I would be awkward or worse, sick. But I managed to clear a plate of turkey and trimmings, though I declined any gravy or butter. Darren introduced me to his friends as his girlfriend. I introduced him to Gail and Andrea as my boyfriend. I'm still happy about that halfway through the meal. He told me that he was willing to take Hiltman's bullet to his reputation for me if necessary. And now he's proving it. I'm the luckiest girl in the world, even if I'm queasy, tired, and worried about my boyfriend's future. Who did the drunk turn out to be, anyway? Morris is a slim, almost delicate-looking black man with gold-rimmed glasses and a meticulous manner. He's a neurosurgeon who went to college with Darren. I don't know. Some girl from Jersey whose boyfriend had ditched her at the lodge. She thought that I was him in disguise or something. Mike shrugs and reaches for the gravy boat. Well, at least she didn't follow you down the slope. That was awkward. Darren is stirring eggnog into his coffee while Morris watches in mild horror. Gail laughs, tossing her black curls off her shoulder. Hope she found him. She and the small, green-eyed Andrea snicker a bit together. Though he probably regretted it if she did. Yeah, I have no idea how someone that tiny could be that fierce. It was like being attacked by an angry drunk koala. Mike and the others share a laugh as I smile and glance out the window at the road. No sign of Abrams. I'm so disappointed that I can't laugh along. I was so hoping we would find something to keep Hiltman from bringing the hammer down on Darren. Darren was a big dope once, while he was at his weakest and most broken. He shouldn't have to pay for it by being ousted from his own company. But it sure did seem like there's no way around that now. Hiltman is a vengeful man. Everybody knows it. But here Darren is, laughing and talking beside me as if none of that mattered. I don't know if he's fearless or simply that committed. To me. Which is amazing. But I still feel terrible about this. I don't know how this is going to end. I even worry about the Ice Princess crystal, which is a big change for me. Darren has promised me that he's taking care of everything, but I'm still not quite sure how. Have you ever been skiing, Cheyenne? Mike asked me and I smiled and shook my head. Not since I was a kid. I used to go, I start to explain when we all hear tires screech outside and someone turns at high speed onto the lodge driveway. Darren is between me and the door at once, and strides toward it with his back straight even as we hear a car door slam, and a rapid, heavy tread crunch across the thin snow. A few moments later, someone pounds on the door forcefully. Darren pulls it open. Standing there, red-faced from rage and too much alcohol, is Hiltman. I am more afraid now than I thought possible. You little bastard, he snarls, shoving a finger into Darren's face. Darren doesn't flinch. For just a moment Hiltman's aggression wilts slightly, uncertainty flicking across his face. His face darkens again. Darren backs up to let him in, as everyone stands from the table. He lurches forward, still aiming his thick finger at Darren like a gun. You didn't show up, my daughter is missing, and I read your letter. What the hell do you mean you're not going forward with the wedding? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do to you? Holy crap, Morris breathes. Is this the piece of work you were telling us about? Thought he never left the big city. Another car pulls into the driveway, this one neatly and quietly, only the crunch of slush and the purr of its motor audible. It comes so soon behind the other that I wonder if Hiltman was followed. I wonder what further complications are about to walk through our door. I thought so too, Darren sighs as Hiltman blinks his small eyes at him. You told these people our private business, he demands with all the anger of an abusive mother once the police are at the door. How much did you tell them? Everything. Darren folds his arms as the older man looks around at us nervously. The video, the blackmail, even how you forced your own daughter into this sham of an engagement by threatening her romantic partner. Hiltman steps closer, his face turning purple. Where is my daughter? Darren stares back at him coolly. Out of your reach for good, that's for sure, along with her sweetheart. A car door slams outside. Footsteps. But they don't approach the door right away. They walk away first and then stop. I hear a creak and a metallic rattle. Hiltman starts to shake, his hands balling into fists. How dare you? I'll ruin you. I'll have that video sent to your board as soon as I get home. Go right ahead, Darren says quietly. What? Hiltman's voice screeches with outrage and disbelief. You can't possibly tell me that. That I don't care? Darren chuckles mirthlessly. Do it, you bastard. Go right ahead and do your best to ruin my life. I'll bounce back. Not if you're dead. Hiltman roars. There's a collective gasp. Hiltman looks up and then around at everyone, a look of panic on his face. You know, if I should die unexpectedly, this room full of witnesses will have something to say about the threat you just made. The corner of Darren's mouth curves up. Hiltman goes pale, and his lips flap as he scrabbles for a comeback. Someone knocks politely on the front door, 3 taps. Everyone turns to see who it is. Darren reaches past Hiltman like he's a problem child to open the door. Oh, hello, Abrams greets the party members from behind a small pile of silver-wrapped presents. Am I too late for the party? His smile is mild and calm, as if the man he's nearly killed himself to avoid isn't there at all. No, of course not. Thank you for coming, Darren starts a moment before Hiltman explodes. You should be hiding up on the mountainside somewhere. You've got a lot of guts facing me now, you coward. I'm lost, Andrea groans as Darren steps back to let the two square off. Dr. Abrams, Darren's dad's old partner. Apparently, yet another person that Hiltman's pissed off, I point out in a purposefully dry tone, and she nods as Darren comes to slip an arm into mine. I'm terminally ill, you fat old bully, Abrams grumbles as he walks in, pushing past his aggressor. He's in flannels and jeans, the fabric hanging on him, a utility knife sheathed on his belt. What are you going to do? Kill me. Hiltman splutters. I'll have my revenge. It's too late for that, Abrams replies. Oh, you can go ahead and lash out again, get someone else killed over your wounded pride. There's no point to it now, though. I'll go to the press. No specifics. Whatever he has on the old bastard must be pretty good, because suddenly, Hiltman goes as white as a sheet. You wouldn't dare, but Abrams only laughs. Try me. Seems like you've lost control, Darren chuckles in total disdain. Perhaps you should have rethought your approach. Hiltman looks around in a panic and then his gaze settles on me. On Darren's arm around me. I'll send the tape to her. She'll leave you, he blurts, grasping at straws. Too late, I exclaim cheerfully. I already know. He told me himself. Are you the only one here who can't handle having his secrets exposed? He starts to curse at me, but when Darren moves toward him, Hiltman backs up toward the door, vowing to get revenge on them all. Drive carefully on the way back to Boston, Abrams cheerfully advises as he steps aside. Those mountain roads are awfully darn slippery. Hiltman storms out with Abrams' laughter following him. Abrams shuts the door on the cold and the screech of tires. So, any turkey left? Darren, surprised at his own calm reaction, offers his old friend some eggnog. It's a much livelier party now that we have something to talk about besides old stories. I'm really glad you came down, I tell Abrams, who smiles cheerfully. He's got more color in his cheeks now, and chatters animatedly with us. Maybe it's Christmas cheer, or maybe it's hope now that he's returning to Boston to get treatments. Maybe it's vindication, since he and Darren laughed Hiltman off the mountain. I don't know, and I suspect I never will. But that's all right. So what happened to Hiltman's daughter anyway? Abrams asks. I'm curious too. Put her on a plane to New Orleans with her girlfriend. I've got some property down there. It's way out of Hiltman's realm of control. We talked about her giving me some dirt on her father in return, but she's too terrified. Abrams laughs. Glad she's out of sight for a while, this may be messy. But don't worry, I know more than enough to make sure that Hiltman faces some sort of justice. It may not be in time, Darren admits, but Abrams just reaches over and pats his arm. Have a little faith. I don't think again about his reassurance until 40 minutes later, when we are interrupted by red and blue lights flashing outside. Darren and I look up in confusion as Morris quips, "Didn't think we had the music up that loud." Darren opens the door for a highway patrolman who takes off his hat as he comes in, shaking off the cold. Just came by to inform you folks, the road down the mountain's closed going east for at least an hour. What? Why? Darren asks as Abrams cheerfully goes for another cup of eggnog. There's been an accident. Pretty bad, the guy went through the guardrail and down the mountainside. The cop looks more tired than troubled, frown half hidden behind his mustache. Accident. Darren suddenly sounds a lot more serious. Yes. One fatality, from what we can tell. Doesn't look like anyone else was in the car. He scratches his mustache, dark eyes narrowing. You hear a car speed past here about an hour ago, driving erratically? We have reports from your neighbors. We all look around at each other, while Abrams quietly sips his nog. Was it a luxury car? Darren asks quietly. Silver rolls, from what I could tell. Real shame on top of everything else. Why? Darren sighs. I might know who was in that car. A man showed up here drunk roughly an hour ago. He threatened us and then sped off before we could stop him. The cop lifts an eyebrow. Who? Dr. Brian Hiltman. I know the cop will interpret his breathlessness as a shock. But it isn't. It's the same thing I feel as I glance back at Abrams, who still serenely sips his holiday cheer. It is the dissolving of a burden that weighed us down, the same with Abrams and Crystal. And over so many others. But even after the cop goes on his way, I'm left to wonder. I work up my nerve over a dessert of pumpkin pie. Abrams is just finishing his and looking at his watch. Dr. Abrams? He looks back at me cheerfully. May I help you, Miss Bell? You didn't tell us what dirt you have on Hiltman that sent him running scared like that. The corners of his eyes crinkle pleasantly. Well, it was plenty. But I don't speak ill of the dead. It's enough that we're free of him. Darren sighs. I've got mixed feelings about that. I imagine that's quite natural. You're a decent man, after all. Far more decent than I. He goes for his coat and hat and puts them on as we stare at him. You have a Merry Christmas now. He's still wearing that serene smile as he walks out. I want to call after him, but I don't know what to say. A toast, Darren chuckles as he raises his glass. To the single weirdest guy I've ever met in my life. May he have many Christmases to come. I hope there are no taxidermies inside those gift packages. I manage to join in the laugh and the toast, but as Abrams' car pulls out of the driveway, I can't stop wondering. The feelings linger for almost an hour. Darren follows up the gift exchange with a ring box, and all other thoughts leave my head in a surge of unbridled joy.
Chapter 17. Cheyenne.
This is the first Christmas Eve morning in a long time when I haven't woken up alone. My fiancé's muscled body lies alongside mine, stretched out lazily, his breathing slow and soft. One big arm is thrown across me, his breath puffs into my tangled hair. We've had to be careful in our intimate moments because of my queasiness. But last night, I barely felt it at all. Last night was triumphant and wild. I'm a bit bruised. I can understand Darren's ferocity in bed as much as mine. Last night was the first night we were finally free to fully commit to each other. We had a lot to celebrate. And a few things to forget. Now, in the quiet morning, I start remembering all over again. After drunk, enraged Hiltman stormed out for his date with Destiny on the ice-slick roads, Abrams apologized for keeping silent for so long. He planned to return to Boston for cancer treatment, and preparing for it had taken up all his time. He explained that though he loved the mountain, he didn't feel like dying just yet, just like he didn't feel like letting Hiltman's threats keep him away from his hometown. I don't know why Hiltman threatened him. Maybe it was about those patents. We may never know. The accident that left the road back to Boston blocked off for an hour was indeed Hiltman going through the guardrail at full speed. The police gave us some answers about an hour after Abrams left, when they took our statement on Hiltman's drunken driving. There was no indication that he had ever so much as pressed the brakes in his race down the icy mountain. The car was scattered in pieces all the way down the mountainside, too mangled to check if the brakes had failed, or if the brakes were cut. Say, by an old man with a knife on his belt and nothing left to lose. I slip out of the warm cave of bedclothes, shuddering. We'll never actually know what happened. It still chills to think that someone's death could improve a lot of people's lives so much. But that's the fact here. Crystal phoned soon after her father's death. She and her girlfriend were already on Darren's private plane, but they were returning home as all danger to them had passed. So too, had any risk of her father destroying Darren's reputation or his relationship with his board. All the danger, all the shackles, had disintegrated when Hiltman had taken a drunken header off the mountain. My mind goes back to Abrams. 5 years in self-imposed exile, hiding from Hiltman, and then unexpectedly he decides on treatment back in Boston. It is as if he knew Hiltman was going to die. Perhaps my theory is closer to the mark than I'd like to think. Still, it's over, and that's the important part. Good riddance. Darren and I have both faced enormous injustices. Mine came from my mother, from other boyfriends, and from the world. Darren's from Hiltman and from his father's murderer, if they're not one and the same. Left alone without loved ones, we found each other. Darren was willing to sacrifice everything to make me his. And now I will be, gladly and without doubts, because I know what I'm worth to him. Just as he's worth the world to me. I pull on my coziest flannel shirt and leggings, and pad out into the great room to see what's happening. I'm flabbergasted. Jacob was supposed to come by this morning to help clean up after the party. But aside from all the leftovers we put away, everything's still decorated, and the trash bin full of torn packaging still sits by the door. Nobody's been here. I check the time. It's almost noon. Where are they? The light coming in from outside is strangely dim. I notice that there's an awful lot of snow sticking to the main window. In fact, the lower 2/3 is completely blocked. Wait. Darren? He's out of bed so fast he doesn't bother with clothes, distracting me thoroughly for a few seconds. What is it, oh? He blinks slowly at the wall of snow outside as he comes to a stop. Crap. Yeah, about that. I look at my nude fiancé and decide against yanking open the door to check if we're snowed in completely. I think we're 2 for 2 on being stranded up here. Yeah, looks like. He grabs his phone off the counter. 4 feet in 8 hours, and it looks like half of it slid down the mountain at us. At least the power isn't out. I'm not even scared this time. I'm just amused. Well, at least we have a lot of leftovers. I venture, biting my lip as I look up at him. He chuckles, looking down, his chest heaving. Guess so. And then he looks up at me, with a twinkle in his eye. I did say I wanted to spend Christmas here with you. I lift an eyebrow slightly and then move toward him, letting him gather me against his naked chest. You did, didn't you? Yeah. He kisses the top of my head. Just as long as they dig us out by New Year's. I giggle as he leads me back to bed.
The end. Sneak peek for a baby for Christmas. We hope you enjoyed listening to Snowed In by Michelle Love. Now, please listen to a sneak peek for A Baby for Christmas by Michelle Love. A Baby for Christmas, a bad boy romance audiobook. Chapter 1. Amelie.
I'm sick of spending the holidays alone. Growing up, I always spent Christmas with crowds of people. This same sprawling country manor echoed with the voices of dozens of French cousins from my father's family. Their parents turned their noses up at me, the Creole daughter of a poor American mom, but the children just saw another playmate. When my father died in a drunken crash, the crowds disappeared, and his family turned their back on us. Christmas withered down to my mother, me, and maybe a few friends. My mom, an orphan, had no one but me. At least then we had no one around to hurt us with their duplicity or scorn. Now I'm in the same position. The only family I will get are children of my own. I'm 30 and unmarried. It's leaving me contemplating some pretty unusual options to fill up my lonely vacant home. Am I really going to do this? This year again, I'm having Christmas dinner alone just like the last 5 since Mother's death from cancer. I'm her only surviving child, and the duty to continue the family line falls on me. But times like now, as I watch the growing storm wind stir the myrtle fronds outside, I wonder what to do to have a child of my own. And on my own terms. The maids and other staff have gone home, aside from the security guards patrolling my mansion and grounds. The cook, Marcy, left a small feast of my favorites on covered plates: salmon with lemon and garlic, rice pilaf, tomato salad, a sliced Philippine mango, and a single glass of chilled Chardonnay. Cherry pie for dessert. Its crown of vanilla ice cream was melting so fast in the hot evening that I had to eat it first. It's not very Christmassy, but neither is the weather outside Baton Rouge today. My Christmas lights adorn palmettos and trees in full bloom and fruit. No severed evergreens or fake snow to be found anywhere. But like everywhere else, the Christmas feast is about family. So here, one is being planned. I dine at a small bleached wood table on the screened balcony, which peeks through the myrtles at the rolling lawn, spreading out in every direction from my estate. This was my father's mansion, my father's money, though in my hands it has multiplied exponentially. I get the occasional phone calls from France, now that I profit more annually than their country's GDP. I recall my mother, and our last lonely Christmases, and never answer. My cousins might have grown up into decent people, but they're a package with their parents, whom I want nothing to do with. That's why I dream of my own family, with my own children and grandchildren filling up this place. I used to dream of a husband as well, but time and disappointment have changed my ambitions. Since my mother died, I haven't even been on a date. Romance is a gamble, one that has not paid off for me. But a baby? It's so much better to care for a child on my own than spend another 10 years playing the field, looking for a man to love me and start a family. I want to be a mother. A man's permanent participation in the process isn't exactly necessary. And as much as I cried over Dad, genetic material and money were all he could supply. And I don't need money. Looking down at my notepad, I've been making a list of considerations, sometimes crossed off. Sometimes they make me blush. Intelligent. Fit. Healthy family history. Mentally stable. Responsible. No addictions. No family history of addiction. 34 to 42. Dark hair. Scratch out the dark hair. I don't actually care what color my baby's hair is. The sperm donor can be any race or color, as long as he's healthy, meets the other standards, and is willing to abide by my terms. Apparently, that was too much to expect of Louisiana men when I looked for dating and marriage prospects. Even if all I wanted was to keep the money I earned before the marriage. That's how to distinguish a gold digger. If anything gets between them and my money, even if it's my own property, they get mad. The rumble of thunder distracts me. The lowering sky tosses through the branches and I nod. Not long now. Staring at my list, I take another bite of my pie, barely tasting it. A lot of financial and romantic predators have been fended off. The last one was Marcus, who told me he would lay down the law as soon as we married, and that my estate needed a real man to manage it. By then, similar and worse encounters had burned me out, so I outright told him to go to hell. I dab at my lips with a napkin, the delicate girly way. I'm a bit of a pain. But a lady in my position should be. I haven't given up on romance so much as on letting men and luck decide when I become a mother, and how long to spend alone. That gives strangers too much control over my life, and many of those strangers have turned out manipulative and hostile. Rain starts falling in sheets, and the smell of ozone promises a real summer thunderstorm. The wind lifts my curly brown hair away from my face as it sighs its way through the insect screens. It'll be a beautiful night. The Lord of the Rings series is on when the thunder first rattles all the gem and mineral samples lining my living room walls in their cases. It's actually a parlor off my bedroom, but I don't spend much time in the vast spaces on the lowest level, not enough parties to justify it most of the time. The thunder rolls again. I scoop up the notepad and pick up the pen, taking a gander at my advertisement. Are you a healthy single or polyamorous man between the ages of 34 and 42? Single woman seeks sperm donor for live-in arrangement. Discretion and a background check are required. One must be willing to move in and relinquish custody rights. Room, board, medical tests, and travel will be covered until conception is confirmed. Incidental expenses are negotiable. A substantial bonus is available for a successful full-term pregnancy. Sitting back, I let out all my breath and nibbled on the pie again, examining what was there so far. It seems cold given the subject matter. Maybe it should be. Would it be too soft? This is business. Even if it involves being with me at least once a night, until a pregnancy is established. If my dating experiences do not improve, this might be the last time I let a man sleep with me. As well as the first. Maybe I should be pickier. Dark hair goes back in. The sort of men who have always caught my eye are Richard Armitage, Idris Elba, Hugh Jackman, and Mark Dacascos. The more personal parts of my list will not be printed. They are reminders for when the photos start coming in. Thinking about it, I add hot as well. Now you're just being shallow, I chuckle. But this situation will be awkward enough, no matter how hot a specimen plays my stud. It will be even worse if I'm not attracted to him. A flash of lightning edges everything in a brilliant light for a moment, and I brace myself for a brownout, but the power doesn't even flicker. The plantation has been in our family for 5 generations. In my youth, the lights would flicker with every storm. Clearly, upgrading the power system has paid off. Why don't you get out and meet more people, Amelie? It's the commonest thing my friends tell me. They don't understand that, after everything, I want tenderness and kindness. If a man cannot provide it, I would rather go without one. My child will get my love and efforts instead. After a few more hours of watching movies and fiddling with my ad copy, I retire to my bed. Lying alone on a mattress that could sleep 4, I listen to the storm beating against the armored windows. My doubts gnaw at me for a while before drifting off. What if no suitable man responds? What if someone else shows up who tries to use me? What if he's difficult to live with or lousy in bed? Maybe I should have done the artificial insemination after all. My eyelids start getting heavy. I'll feel better knowing my child's father. And the idea of never experiencing intimacy hurts. Especially since it's hardly my fault. It's not like the bar was set particularly high for potential romantic partners. In this day and age, it seems that men will sometimes dig to get under the lowest bar. Even my father did that. My own bitterness is noticed with some amusement as I drift off. It will probably be fine. Not every man is dreadful, and most of the respondents will be perfectly normal. One of them should be able to help me conceive in the course of a year. Provided, of course, someone is interested. There's always the lab if not. And so I advertised anonymously online.
Chapter 2. Amelie.
Holy crap. Why in the world have I done this? In just 2 weeks, I have received about 6,000 applicants. 6,000 men who love the idea of getting paid to impregnate me, even sight unseen, with no name or mention of my wealth. And most of them are very blunt about it. Not only is romance dead, I think, but a lot of these guys can't even manage tact. I sit in my book-lined office, overlooking the rear garden, scrolling through the archive of messages on my tablet. I immediately disqualify anyone who is from overseas, gives a hint of being married, or asks about my net worth. That only pars things down by several hundred, however. All right, this is ridiculous. There's no way I'm going to read all these emails from top to bottom. It's time to put on my executive hat and cut everyone who doesn't qualify. First are those who refuse to follow instructions. It's as simple as running a computer program. There's no emotion involved in sticking to my list. I didn't make my first billion by being kind to those who didn't respect me. I sort out the too old, too young, and those from outside a 100-mile radius, cutting the list down to just about 4,000. I use the same cold detachment and adherence to facts that I use when hiring or firing at work. All the same, I feel flutters of fear as I send rejection after rejection and the consequential blocking of the applicants. Thank you for your interest. Unfortunately, you cannot be considered for this position because you are not from Louisiana. Still in your teens. Old enough to be my father. All right, that went swiftly. I take a good swallow of my sweet tea before deciding on the next eliminating factors. One way or another, get down to a short list of a few, maybe even just 2 men. Thankfully, I did not disclose my home address. The image of strange men trampling my lawn and flower beds, tracking dirt onto my pristine walkways and stately porch, makes me shudder. How many would be angry if refused in person? How many would explode into online harassers if I gave them a chance? Maybe it's silly to let strangers threaten me, even in big angry crowds. What exactly am I afraid of? I have money, power, and a small army's worth of security between me and any scorned suitor. Perhaps it's just instinctive, this urge to protect myself from the men who would use me without care. I cut another 900-odd applicants who are clearly trolling. A few at least give me a laugh. But none get a reply. And after that, the selection process becomes unsettling. 2 out of 3 left are so overtly and uncomfortably forward in their approach that they make me shudder with revulsion. There's overexcitement and awkwardness, and then there's vileness, suggesting they either don't care about my comfort level or maybe just want to see how much garbage I'll put up with. I cut them easily and send my formal rejections with a gleeful disdain. Although you technically qualify for the position, you lack the social grace, consideration for others, and respect for women needed to make a living with you for up to several months bearable. This decision was made based on your explicit description of your intentions, fantasies, and demands. Unsolicited and unwanted description or image of your genitals. Assumption of my interest in a subservient relationship. Repeatedly calling me mommy. It seems that 200-odd of the remaining applicants want to preach at me for my immoral choice. The rejection pile grows. I've been judged by every member of my family, with the exception of my mother, and see no point in putting up with it from an applicant. That leaves 896 men. I stared at page after page of email messages, scrolled back and forth, and figured out other disqualifying characteristics. There are too many to interview. I couldn't even correspond with them all. Frustrated, I scroll the included image files. Nudes, fetish wear, or bad imitations of Christian Grey get binned as well. The same goes for below-the-waist pics showing off bulges, real or enhanced. Nice zucchini smuggling job there, friend. I could have lived my whole life without seeing that. You are a walking argument for thoroughly rinsing one's produce. I struggle on, bolstered by the brief laugh. But I'm getting tired and even more frustrated. My rejection letters get increasingly vague, formal, and short. I regret to inform you that the position has been filled. Thank you again for your interest. Send, block, and move on. 591 left. My glass is empty, and I stand up to stretch and get another refill. Outside I can smell rain again, but right now the steam heat parches me. My head throbs. I gently massage my temples, eyes closed, and swallow more tea. I'm at my limit, temporarily out of ideas for how to further narrow down the list. Ready to quit for the day, I scroll back and forth through the photos, hoping for one of the men to catch my eye. And then, quite unexpectedly, one does. His face flashes past as I scroll. It registers in my head. I stop and frown for a moment. In an instant, and in the midst of hundreds of other images, a pale and dark blur catches my attention. I slowly scroll back. A pair of almost silvery gray eyes stares back at me from beneath dark brows, gleaming behind a roguish curtain of jet black hair. His skin is pale, his features a strange mix of generous and sharp, with a pointed nose and wide, sensual mouth. A smile lingers on those lips that makes my toes curl. Oh wow. Hello. He sent 5 photos. Tall and muscular, he looks as good in a suit and tie at a club as he does in shorts at the beach. I stare at the drops of water gleaming like pearls across his broad chest, and feel my mouth go dry. When I reach his last photo, I hesitate. In all these applications, I've seen just about everything, from genitalia to bizarre instructions from total strangers. But this one thing is unexpected. He's smiling softly as he bends down to put his arms around a small, dark-haired girl in a wheelchair, who's so obviously his daughter that a lump forms in my throat. A single dad. It would be a package deal for the duration. And she's special needs. I have the ability to accommodate her easily, so that's no reason to exclude him. Besides, how can I say no kids when it's kids I want? So, instead of deleting his email, I open it up. Hi, my name's Daniel Fontaine. I hope you're doing well. I'm a single dad in my 30s. I live in New Orleans, where I own a small online investment firm and devote most of my free time to my daughter's care. I fit all your criteria, and you didn't mention having a problem with kids, so I thought I would give this a shot. He follows it up with a current medical report, STD test results, and a genetic profile. A very nice addition, though more information than I actually need. I read over the rest, my gaze jumping sometimes to the thumbnails of his photos. Their effect on me is startling. My cheeks get warm when I look at him. Shyly, I glance away and feel girlishly silly in doing so, as if the photograph is looking back at me. It's such an unexpected feeling, it scares me a little, but a warmth stirs in my heart when looking at him smiling at his daughter easily counters that. It's not love at first sight, but I wonder what he'll be like in person if just an image leaves me this weak in the knees. Is he as kind as he seems in that photograph? Maybe he won't mind my awkwardness. And wary. What concerns me right now is the awkward part and the inexperience, especially when it comes to intimacy. I guess having an older child around would be good practice. Besides, I can hardly ask a man to leave his daughter home. I keep reading, deciding not to cut him out. I have included the results of my recent physical as well. If more information about my health is needed, I can supply it. I'm a practicing martial artist. I don't smoke and do not drink more than a beer or 2 a day. My family's Cajun and French, and they live mostly on this continent. No health issues. A few smokers and one uncle who likes getting drunk, but nothing serious. The sole cancer death in my family was mesothelioma from asbestos exposure. My daughter Caroline was disabled in an automobile accident 3 years ago. She is 9 and undergoing physical therapy and surgeries in hopes she can walk again. Until then, she is confined to a wheelchair. I'm hoping this won't inconvenience you. It would, but that still isn't enough to delete his email. Instead, I bookmark it and move on. I decided to at least look through the remaining hundreds of emails, even though I knew that Daniel had already set a high bar for the rest of them. By the time I turn in, I've narrowed the applicants down to a dozen of the most eligible men in southern Louisiana, but it's Daniel's smiling face I see when I close my eyes.
Chapter 3. Daniel.
I start checking my emails every few hours, eagerly waiting to hear from a wealthy single woman from Baton Rouge, looking for a man to knock her up. My application was sent 3 weeks ago, and I was warned the response might take up to a month, but Caroline's legs have been aching so bad that I'm getting desperate. It took the dedicated work of 2 hackers, a private detective, and my own powers of persuasion to track down the mystery woman. Her fertility specialist gave up her name and details after a fat enough bribe. It hurt giving up the money, but if I play it right, I'll get it back 1,000-fold. Amélie Labelle, Louisiana's only female billionaire. A world-famous brilliant jewelry designer whose mining and production companies hold an enormous market share and who single-handedly erased the debts of over 250,000 locals last Christmas alone. Smart, talented, rich, powerful, and soft-hearted, not to mention one of the most attractive women I have ever seen. Talk about my dream girl. Or at least, the closest I have seen since losing my wife. That's her. Jerry grins as he returns with 2 long necks from the kitchen. He's fair and chubby with a perpetually boyish look, and is a house husband and new dad when not writing code, or tracking down people on my request. And she totally wants your seed, dude. I drink in the gorgeous Creole woman on the screen. Her elegant gown and tumbled dark brown curls give her the look of a Greek goddess. Her eyes are a soft golden brown, like good bourbon. Her round cheeks and full kissable lips, set in a shy smile, turn me on. Robust curves, a cute face, and a demure manner. What an intriguing combination. Damn, I hope so. Her idea of a substantial bonus could pay for the rest of my baby's treatments. So how much for all of it? Jerry frowns as he settles back in his chair. His own twins are tiny and currently napping. The baby monitor sits next to his computer screen, showing their tiny, curled forms. The remaining surgeries are $1.2 million, including physical therapy. Designing a brain-controlled assistive walking exoskeleton to retrain her brain and muscles means more time and cash, up to another $250,000. My voice goes grim. He takes a big sip of his beer. That's a chunk of change, even with the kind of scores you manage. You don't think the bonus for knocking this lady up will actually pay for all of it? No. But I'm hoping to persuade her to pay for it anyway. I'm very good at persuading people. In fact, it's my real business. He lets out a low whistle and turns back to the golden-eyed goddess on the screen. So what's your plan? Buy us time, I reply cryptically. After over a decade in my line of work, I know better than to let anyone in on all my plans. Buy myself time to convince her. It shouldn't take more than a few months. His eyebrows rise as he takes another drink. But your part will be over as soon as she's knocked up. How will you delay that? Steelthon or rubber? I smile. That's taken care of. I'll have at least until Christmas before having to worry about it. Christmas. Roughly 11 months away. Long enough to make sure my little girl got her legs back before the lovely Ms. Labelle gets her baby. Anyway, everyone will walk away happy. If of course we walk away at all. Because that's my real ambition, not only that my little girl walks again. I want to give her the life of a billionaire, to make up for my mistake. I really want to see you pull this one off, dude. Jerry chuckles over the chorused hum of his computer equipment. How do you figure she'll choose you over everyone else? Because, my net surfing friend, I'm exactly what she's looking for. If not, I'll find out what she secretly wants and will become that man. I hope she figures that out. Best of luck on this one, Danny boy. She's gonna be a tough nut to crack. He's looking at something on the screen besides her photo. I curse myself for getting hung up on her picture without reading to the end. No family on this continent, not much of a social life. You couldn't find a thing on her romantic life. He shakes his head. Bits and pieces, but nothing lasted more than a month. No signs of acrimony, she just stopped calling them and blocked them online. Reading over the details he has gathered on her, they are added to the database on Amélie Labelle building in my head from my various sources. She's not happy with confrontation, especially with men. Probably not Sherlock, but she didn't found and run so many companies because she's a wuss, or dumb. He scrolls to show me the rest. She does have relatives overseas, but they're not in contact with her. Isolated, non-confrontational, probably lonely as hell, but with a strong will and mind, a lot of money to burn, and one simple desire. No clue why she never married. He shrugs one rounded shoulder and burps. Not entirely, but if her romantic life's been unlucky and her standards are high, well, better alone than miserable with someone, I muse. Exactly. He tilts his head. So, saying you get the job, how do you plan on keeping from impregnating her if you're drawing her nightly? I stare at him and reprimand him with a sharp, Jerry. Okay, none of my business. Just curious. He looks at me nervously. I sigh, relaxing. It's fine. Leave that to me. Soon after that, the twins start crying. I help with a diaper change and give the poor guy some advice on properly giving a bottle. The two are cute, but from their thin blonde hair and round faces, they unfortunately have inherited their dad's looks. Hopefully, they'll also get his brains, but not his lack of social graces. I walk out into the steamy rain with a thumb drive of files on Amelie in my pocket and her soft smile in my head. There's still a chance my initial hook won't be as good as somebody else's, and she won't even respond, but it's definitely worth a shot. New Orleans in January is still a steam bath on days like today. The sky is low and a deep saturated gray-black with shadows of purple like massive bruises. Right now, all we have is soaking rain and the occasional whip of wind, but the feel of a real storm gathering behind it. Get home to my little girl. The wheels of my retired police car skid in the growing wind, as the pavement becomes slippery from sheets of rain. I'm glad Caroline's not here. The skids and the way the wind rocks the big sedan would terrify her. If anything, she's an even more nervous passenger. It's the trauma. I'm not sure what to do besides the obvious. Soothe the nightmares, look after her when her upper back hurts, and do all I can to pay for every doctor's appointment. The bad memories and the growing levels of fear, those I don't know how to fix. Pulling into the lot at the extended stay place in Metairie, the rain is starting to turn into spatters of hail and the sky is even darker. I get the cover onto the car and rush inside, hoping Caroline is holding it together until I am at her side. When I enter our forest-colored, blandly decorated suite, Caroline is curled up on her bed near the big windows, quietly watching the storm. Her thin, pale little legs are simply stretched out in front of her, and she's typing on her laptop propped on a pillow beside her. She looks at me as I cross over to our small kitchen, her warm brown eyes so much like her mother's it hurts to look into them. "Hey, Dad," she says in a tired voice. "Hey, sweetheart. Up for some lunch?" She isn't doing well today, shadows around her eyes, and she's paler than usual. She shakes her head, giving me a wan, apologetic smile. "Sorry, Dad. The pain pills are really tearing up my stomach." "I'm sorry, baby. Do you think you can get a nutrition drink down, at least?" It's our usual compromise when she can't eat. She licks her lips and nods. "Okay, Dad. Strawberry." I sit by her as she labors away, sip by determined sip. "When are we moving out of this place?" she asks as some color returns in her cheeks. "I'm almost healed from the last surgery. We don't have to stay, do we?" I gently smile at her. She hates the residential hotel. It reminds her too much of our early days when we were crammed into real hotels because there was little money and no honest work. I gave up honest work for her. She doesn't know where the money comes from. But she's right, we need a real home. I have a job lined up near Baton Rouge. It should pay well enough for the rest of your treatment. I don't want to get her hopes up too high since it's not yet confirmed. She needs so much hope right now. Maybe I do too. "My back hurts today, Dad. Even with the pills." She presses her lips together and looks at me pleadingly. I gently pat her on the shoulder. "It's the pressure changes from the storm. You're still recovering from where they fixed those 3 vertebrae, so they'll be sensitive for a while. It'll get better. Soon you won't need so many pills." She sniffs. "Will the pain ever go away?" I close my eyes, wincing, and hug her. "We'll do everything in our power to make sure it does, honey. Even if that means seducing a billionaire for her money."
End of sneak peek for A Baby for Christmas by Michelle Love. Thank you for listening to this preview of A Baby for Christmas, a bad boy romance. Please like and subscribe to support this channel. It helps more than you know.